helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
Keep fighting, Helen. Search Vodafone DreamLab and join the Dream Team tonight.
DreamLab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
Stay on top of everything happening in the pro wrestling universe with the Body Slamming podcasts on TuneIn. For passionate recaps of the most recent SmackDown to a pro wrestler's perspective on life and culture at large, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Balance of Power with David Weston.
Coming up on Balance of Power, voting for president can be more complicated than we think, and the Supreme Court is considering whether states can make it a bit more direct. My colleague June Grasso is here to take us through the case the Supreme Court is hearing today. But first, let's get a market check with Charlie Pellet.
All right, thank you very much, David Weston. Looking at a screen with a whole lot of red on this Wednesday here. Stocks now at a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. Also, tensions with China flared. Here's where we stand. S&P down 53 points right now at 2816. That is a drop of 1.9%. The Dow down 486 points now, down 2%, and NASDAQ is down 187 points, a drop there of 2.1%. We are trading at close to lows of the day. 10-year up 9/30 seconds with a yield of 0.64%. Gold up $9 the ounce, up 0.5%, 17.11. West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 1.5% now, 25.37 a barrel. Brent with a $29 handle now, 29.33. Barrel of Brent down by 2.1%. Wholesale prices are falling, and with that story, here's Bloomberg's Vinny Del Giudice.
The producer price index dropped 1.3% in April, the largest decline in 5 years. The data signaled waning inflation as the coronavirus envelops the globe, curbing demand. Much of the drop reflected an almost 57% decline in gasoline. That's the largest in records back to the 1940s. Vinny Del Giudice, Bloomberg Radio.
Intelsat shares are down 15.7%. That is the most intraday since April 21st after a reorg report said it's preparing to file for Chapter 11 as soon as tonight, as efforts to hammer out an out-of-court transaction failed to gain enough support. Again, recapping equities lower across the board. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all slumping. S&P down now by 56, a drop there of 2%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power continues, the Wednesday edition. Back we go, and here's your host, David Weston.
Thank you so much, Charlie Pellet. Well, yesterday, it was access to President Trump's tax records. Today, it's the workings of the Electoral College the Supreme Court is taking up, with the case of the so-called faithless elector front and center. My colleague June Grasso and Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr are here to explain. And Greg, I must say, in reading up on this, I had to go back to my high school civics to remember exactly how the Electoral College works. It turns out when I go in the voting booth, if I get to do that, and I push the lever down, I'm not actually voting for the candidate. I'm voting for somebody who maybe is going to vote for the candidate.
That's right, and that person's name probably isn't on the ballot. You're voting for an elector who will then cast a vote in the Electoral College. And this Supreme Court case was all about whether that elector has any discretion in terms of who he or she votes for. You may think that they're going to vote for the candidate that won the statewide vote in your state, but in at least some cases, electors say, no, we have the right to vote for who we please.
And it turns out, something I did not realize, is that electors sometimes don't vote for the ones that they're associated with. I think in the last election, something like 9 electors voted differently from the candidate they were associated with.
Yeah, there were 10 in the last election, and depending on how you count it, that's the most in history. That's more than we had in all the elections of the last century combined. So there is some concern among people that this could be a growing phenomenon.
And Greg, what the justices seem to be struggling with how to get around the requirements and the constitutional implication that the electors get to vote for who they want to. Where did you see the struggle sort of coming out?
Well, in the end, it seemed to come out on the side of letting states bind those electors. By the end, a couple justices, Sam Alito and Brett Kavanaugh among them, were saying, we're worried about chaos here. If electors do have the ability to vote as they please, and if we have a close election, what's going to happen? Are these electors going to be subject to all sorts of pressure? Are they going to be subjected to possible bribes, foreign influence, things like that? And given that we have this history or this tradition where nowadays people expect that when they cast a vote for Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, that they're doing it, that vote is really going towards that person, maybe we should err on the side of giving people what they expect.
So much for textualism, huh? Well, yesterday, during the arguments over the subpoenas for President Trump's financial records, you could see the partisan divide, but I didn't see that today. Did you?
No, did not see that at all. This is one of those cases where if you wanted to go back to the constitutional text and the history, you can kind of read it either way. And part of the fact that the court is hearing this case now, they're doing it outside the context of a specific election. So nobody can predict at this point whether the court's ruling might help Donald Trump, might help Joe Biden, might not matter until some future 11 in 2044. And that perhaps took some of the partisanship out of it and made it more of a question of figuring out what the Constitution requires and figuring out what sort of system we can have that will actually work.
Greg, I did get to listen to some of the arguments yesterday. I didn't today, and I haven't read the briefs, the papers. But did the argument come up at all that there's also a constitutional protection for the sanctity of my vote? That, in fact, in various contexts, the Supreme Court has said it does matter. You can't interfere with somebody's ability to vote. If I'm voting for somebody, I think I'm voting for a candidate and I'm not, don't I have a constitutional right that's impinged?
Yeah, that did come up on occasion. It was more focused on Article 2 and the 12th Amendment. The 12th Amendment has a lot of language in there about the electors and how they're casting votes and how they have ballots, and that was a little more the focus of the argument. But yes, it was all against the backdrop of what you just described, that there is this fundamental right to vote that Americans have and that they expect will be meaningful, and that to let an elector essentially defy the will of the state's voters might not be something that the Constitution should allow.
And Greg, Chief Justice John Roberts seemed exasperated at one point when the attorney for the electors, one of the attorneys for the electors, Jason Harrow, wouldn't give him any limits on what they could put, what a state could put on the electors. And then Roberts said, "Well, a giraffe can vote? Is that what you're saying?" So maybe all these days of oral arguments have finally gotten to Chief Justice John Roberts.
Yes, and he also said, can an elector just flip a coin and decide who to vote for? One other person who had similar questions was Clarence Thomas, who said, could an elector go in there and vote for Frodo Baggins? The answer to that
I missed that one.
The answer to that one, apparently Justice Thomas is a Lord of the Rings fan. The answer to that one, and potentially the giraffe as well, is that even the lawyers for the electors said the one thing states can do is ensure that an elector is actually voting for a person and not a fictional person, and certainly not a hobbit.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, June.
No. Well, I was just going to ask him, after all these days, the last day of oral arguments live by phone, how he thinks they went, except for the flush, of course.
In general, they went. I think the justices would agree pretty well. We had this new dynamic where Clarence Thomas was asking questions, and he added something to it. He made it a more interesting conversation. I will say one big takeaway I have from all this is that the questions seem to be a little more even-handed in the sense that justices were asking questions of both sides, often trying to play devil's advocate, or at least that's what it seemed. They were trying to truly force both sides to really flesh out their arguments, and we'll see how that results with the opinions.
So Greg, finally, my question is, what's happened to Clarence Thomas, Justice Thomas? Because, he never, ever talked on the bench. And now, as I listened yesterday, he not only asked questions when he was called upon, he jumped in at the end when there was more time. He jumped in with more questions. It's a different Clarence Thomas.
It is. He clearly seems comfortable with this format. He has said he doesn't like the free-for-all nature where everybody's interrupting the lawyer. But when it's set up in this way where he is offered a chance, okay, Justice Thomas, here's your chance to ask questions, he apparently has a lot of things he wants to find out.
It's fascinating. It was just great listening to him, I must say, without having to actually be there. Okay, thanks so much to June Grasso, my colleague, and also Bloomberg Supreme Court reporter Greg Storr. Earlier today, I got to have an exclusive interview with the governor of Connecticut, Ned Lamont, and I started out by asking him exactly what he needs to see between now and May 20, which is the date he set for when these restrictions may come off, at least in part. And here's the interview.
Look, Connecticut got pretty hard. We were right next to New York City, which was in many ways the Wuhan province of the pandemic here in the United States. And but now it's 6 weeks later, all those curves are bending in the right direction. We have extra hospitalization capacity there, which was a key metric. We're finally getting the PPE. We delivered it ourselves, bought it from China. Complicated process, I might say. We got track and trace and testing ready to go. And these are the key metrics we needed to give people confidence we could begin to reopen on May 20th.
Governor, can you give us any sense of the distribution across the state? And I guess, both socioeconomic but also geographic. We see some differences in some states. In fact, of course, New York is a larger geographic state. There's going to be differences in the reopening. Is that going to apply in Connecticut?
Well, first of all, we were hit in different ways in different regions. Fairfield County, which is closest to New York City, was hit the hardest, hit the earliest, went right down Metro North and I-95 up through Bridgeport, New Haven, Hartford. That was the area that probably got hit the hardest because of the proximity to New York. Now we've got Eastern Connecticut, which is the new London area, and maybe a little bit of Boston is coming down that way as well. But we're a pretty small state, so our anticipation is we're going to open on a statewide basis on a very thoughtful way. And on some things, we want to do it in association with our neighboring governors. It doesn't do me any good to close down bars and restaurants if Andrew Cuomo opens them up in Westchester County. So we're doing some things in conjunction.
Yeah, Governor, as you mentioned, there's so much integration between Connecticut and particularly New York City, the New York City area. What about those commuter trains? Will that pose a particular challenge for you? Because we have a lot of people going back and forth between Connecticut and New York every single day on those trains.
There were a lot of people going back and forth, and we thought about that. But within a few weeks, ridership was down 95%. So I think people voted with their feet, so to speak. They started staying at home, they started telecommuting, or they drove if they had to, which was a good thing. So Governor Cuomo and I thought about what we should do with, say, Metro North, the rail system, and decided it was probably first responders and people that really had no other way to get to work. So we did keep it open on a limited basis.
But as you reopen, as we reopen, will we be looking at a certain curtailment, for example, a capacity, the seating arrangements, things like that in the commuter trains?
We're certainly going to be very strict about desanitizing and making sure everything is clean on a real basis. Probably going to discourage people from going in the train for the near term. Probably going to strongly recommend that everybody use masks in the train for the near term. But I think even bigger, I think you're going to find that the old idea of a commuter going into New York City 5 days a week may be an idea that's behind us. I think we found at the end of this COVID session that we're realizing that telecommuting in many cases works. So maybe you have a great job that seems to be geographically located in New York City. You can do it 2/3 of the time from your home in Stamford.
As you look toward possible reopening, what is your situation with respect to testing, with respect to tracing and hospital capacity? You said you have the hospital capacity you need right now, but in case there's a flare-up, how much capacity do you have to deal with it?
Well, we have 40% capacity now, and I think that's a pretty good benchmark. If there's a flare-up, I would rethink things if we got to 80 or 90% capacity. Obviously, we have capacity now. In fact, they're going back and doing some of the so-called electives, many of which were important operations that were put off and should be taking place now. The testing, we've ramped that up. We're doubled it from last week. We'll double it again next week. So we'll be doing about 42,000 tests a week starting next week.
Governor, you mentioned that PPE, that personal protective equipment that you bought from China, a fair amount of it now. Have you had any issues with the quality of that? Because there have been some other places around the world and even around the country who've bought things from China, and it turns out it didn't work so well, whether it's testing kits or whether it's PPE.
We had to be very careful in how you vet this. That's a good question. And let's face it, a month or so ago when people were really scrambling the globe, everybody had a friend who had a cousin in Ukraine who did some work with Rudy Giuliani, and you didn't know where you were getting this stuff from. We didn't do any of that, but we found this. We vetted it very carefully, working closely with the government of China, working with some strong relationships we had here with the business people in Connecticut. So I have it on high confidence that this is the right stuff.
Going forward, I mean, you've been coordinating with Governor Cuomo, with Governor Murphy down in New Jersey and things like that. Do you envision a world in which those three states and maybe more really get together in the manufacturing and purchasing of PPE and stockpiling?
Yeah, I think that makes all the sense in the world. We've got a buying consortium now, so it's not little Connecticut going all the way to China to buy this product. But even more importantly, we ought to figure out who is good at manufacturing what. We've got a facility here in this state that makes vents. Gina Raimondo up in Rhode Island has a group that's making masks in a significant way. Phil Murphy, they've got some of the best pharma in the country and are doing the saliva tests. So I think there are a lot of ways we can mix and match.
So, Governor, you made a big change in your administration yesterday. Your public health commissioner, you're stepping aside. You're in the process. You have an interim. You're in this process of putting somebody new in. I'm not going to ask about why you made that change. Everybody else has asked you the question. But it was said, including by your former public health commissioner, that you wanted to go a different direction. What is the different direction you want to go?
State government works in silos. People aren't always talking to each other. We found actually the hospital system didn't coordinate with each other as well. So I really worked hard to make sure I worked on a regional basis with my governors, get the hospital system, the academics involved as we reopened Connecticut. And then when it came to health care within the state government, I thought it made sense to have the Department of Social Services and Public Health more closely aligned. One regulates the nursing home, one does the rates on the nursing homes. So we're trying to get better coordination.
That was the governor of Connecticut, Ned Lamont, talking earlier to us here on Bloomberg. And now it's time for a market check. And for that, we go to Charlie Pellett.
All right. I thank you very much, David Weston. Here's what's going on this Wednesday. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all at a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. Also, tensions with China flared. S&P fell after the Fed Chair said the threat of a lasting downturn can deepen without additional government spending. Here's where we stand. S&P down 54, a drop of 1.9%. The Dow is down 492 points, down 2.1%. NASDAQ is down 182 points, a drop there of 2%. 10-year up 730 seconds with a yield of 0.65%. Gold up 0.5%, $17.11 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 1.7%, $25.34 a barrel. Brent down 2.3%, $29.29. So again, recapping, equities lower here now, a 500-point drop in the Dow, down 2.1%. S&P down 56, down by 1.9%. Cisco reports after the bell, shares lower now by 3%. I'm Charlie Pellett. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash. Balance of Power continues. And once again, here's your host, David Weston.
Thank you so much to Charlie Pellett. This is Balance of Power. We've heard for months now that the coronavirus may thrive in cooler weather and that we may get a respite as the hot summer months come to the northern hemisphere. But a new study out of MIT casts some doubt on that thesis. We welcome now Hazir Homarmandad. He is Associate Professor of System Dynamics at MIT Sloan School of Business. So, Professor, thank you so much for being with us. First of all, before you give us the results, tell us what the study really looked at. How did you determine whether there was a material difference?
So what we did was collecting data on infection rates across the globe, about 3,700 different locations over the last 3 months or so, and then looked at the weather conditions every day in all those locations. and with some statistical modeling, figured out how we can associate the weather conditions on each day with what would be the expected number of new infections on that day, which is very different from the numbers reported on the official statistics. And using that correlation association, we figured out how much the transmission risks of the COVID change with the weather conditions.
And what did you find?
So basically what we found is twofold. First of all, we did find an effect from both temperature and humidity, and to some extent from air pressure on the transmission risk for COVID. These effects are in the form that as we increase temperature and humidity, transmission risks do go down. But the effects are relatively modest, so alone they will not be wiping out the virus during summer in most locations.
So there was an effect. I mean, it slows it down, as I understand it. It could help. Does that suggest that perhaps in connection with other activities, not relying solely on the heat and the humidity, you could have a positive effect?
Absolutely. So basically the effect we find is strongest above 77 degrees Fahrenheit. So we see about 1.7% reduction in transmission rates for every degree Fahrenheit about 77 degrees. And that effect is even stronger if humidity is high. So when you put all of those together, you get something in the range of 20-30% variation between winter and summer for locations such as New York, Boston, northeast of the U.S.
Now, without having gone through your research at all, I assume this is basically statistical research with regression analyses and things like that. How confident are you? What's the degree of certainty about this correlation? Professor? Professor Ramandat, we've just lost Professor Ramandat. I'm sorry to hear, because we were very interested in talking with him about exactly what he had found about the coronavirus and the possible effect of heat and humidity on the coronavirus. And in the meantime, we did talk earlier at Bloomberg with the EU Commissioner for Transport and got her views about exactly what lies ahead for the transportation sector in Europe. Here's what she had to say.
All the member states would like some guidance from the European Union, from Brussels, because we had experienced when the lockdown starting to loom that the lack of coordination brought a lot of congestion and issues across borders. So now everyone is looking to us and say, okay, what rules should they put in place when we are going to open up? But the decision, the ultimate decision, because everyone is asking when, it relies with the member states. And that is because the epidemiological situation in each member state, it is so different. So it is up to national authorities, especially the health one, under the guidance from the European Center for Disease Control, to decide when they are opening up and for what destinations are they going to open up. What I can do and we are doing is say, okay, when you open up, these are the rules you should put in place for your transport modes so that people will feel safe to travel by plane or train or buses or whatever. And of course it is a no-brainer, but it's good to have in place coherent and equivalent rules all over the Europe, because we are a single market and we really want to have the same rules in place all over member states.
And many of your countries depend to a large extent on tourism. It makes up a good proportion of GDP, depending on what country we're talking about, from Greece to Italy to Spain and so on. How much of the 2020 summer season do you think could possibly be salvaged in tourism?
Well, you know how it is, European Union. We are so different, actually. So, of course, there are countries in which the epidemiological situation is not that bad, and they are also touristic destinations, and they would be more eager to open up. But there are others, again, touristical destinations in which the situation is not quite stable yet. So I would say there is a difference between member states regarding the speed they would like to open up. But I think we are going to witness an opening this summer, because I have witnessed already there is a slow start in a reopening destination, for example, for air flights. And I think with our recommendations put forward today in what kind of at least minimal rules to be observed, yes, for the hotels, for transport modes, some will be more encouraged to open up for tourism purposes.
Commissioner, how concerned are you and your colleagues about a resurgence of the coronavirus if you do indeed lift restrictions or allow countries to continue with their restriction lifting?
Well, here it's hard to say. Of course, we are worried overall with the situation, and the fact that we do not have a vaccine or a treatment puts a lot of burden on the decisions to be taken. By the other hand, we are observing what is going on, how things are evolving, and until, again, we have a vaccine or a treatment, I think we have to learn to live with the virus. We have to learn to travel with the virus. So while for some other purposes, we have learned to observe more security features. If you think at yourself at how a travel by plane looks nowadays and how it looked 20 years ago, it is such a much more difference. But I think with some rules in place to limit and minimize the risks, people will learn how to protect themselves and continue to do their economic activities or the travel or the leisure activities with more precaution. And I think it's a learning exercise.
Right, but
so I would say that first we'll learn to live with it, and then at some point we can think of going to more freedom in how we relate ourselves to this issue.
That was European Union Commissioner for Transport, Adina Valian, speaking earlier today with my colleague, Bonnie Quinn. You have to have a little sympathy for her because she doesn't have control over whether people are going to travel. That's nation state by nation state, but she's responsible for overall policy. That does it for Balance of Power for today. This is Bloomberg, and I'm David Weston.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
How should
Did somebody say just eat?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat.
Somebody say just eat.
A half-price dream holiday, wouldn't want to miss that. A takeaway for free, wouldn't want to miss that. And 30 gigs data for just £10 a month on Smarty Mobile. You definitely don't want to miss that. Our Smarty SIM comes packed with 30 gigs of data and unlimited calls and texts for just £10 a month on a 1-month plan. That's why Smarty won Best Value SIM-only network in the U-Switch Mobile Awards 2020. Don't miss out. Search Smarty Mobile. Smarty. Simple, honest mobile. Smarty.co.uk.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. About creating a better world for everyone and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Insight from the reporters and editors who bring you America's most trusted business magazine. Plus, global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Live from New York and from New Jersey, streaming on YouTube. It is Wednesday, May 13, 2020, and it's another day and another reality check, Jason, from a voice that the nation investors are definitely listening to. We're calling it the 1-2 punch.
That's right. Yesterday we heard from Dr. Anthony Fauci. He's become a go-to voice. But today, Fed Chief Jay Powell saying the economy facing a whole lot of uncertainty, unprecedented downside risk. That is the phrase that people are talking a lot about, and calling on Capitol Hill maybe to do something about it.
Right, and it's definitely weighing on the minds of investors. You can see in the trade. And for that, let's get a check on today's trading session. Let's turn things over to Charlie Pellet. Hi, Charlie.
Thank you very much, and happy Wednesday to you both. You heard Powell live right here on Bloomberg Radio. The Fed chair said the threat of a lasting downturn can deepen without additional government spending. We'll have more on his remarks, and of course, market reaction to those remarks coming up right here on Bloomberg Business Week. S&P now lower by 59, bouncing along the bottom, down 2.1%. The Dow slumping 537 points. That is a drop now of 2.3%, while NASDAQ is down 203 points, lower by 2.3%. 10-year up 6/32 with a yield of 0.64%. We've got gold up 0.5%, 17.10 the ounce, up $8 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude now down 2.1%, 25.22 a barrel. Recapping equities lower with the S&P slumping 60, down by 2.1%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. We'll be coming back to you throughout the rest of the afternoon for those updates. This portion of Bloomberg Business Week is brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. Carol, let's set the agenda.
Let's set the agenda because we definitely are seeing a risk-off trade once again. Let's bring in our team. We've got Sarah Ponsek with us, cross-asset reporter at Bloomberg News. She's on the phone from Florida. Dave Wilson also with us, stocks editor at Bloomberg News on the remote access line in New Jersey. So, Dave, let's start with you because we are down. We're pretty much near or just off our lows here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really a second day of declines, pretty broad-based. You look at what's really leading the way down. There are a whole lot of familiar stocks, you know, the energy companies, the airlines, the cruise lines. And I'll tell you one move that really got my attention today, and it might fly under the radar otherwise, is General Electric. Now, at one point today, the shares got below $5.50 each. And why that matters, you are talking about the lowest price for GE since December 1991.
Wow.
That's just how far things have fallen, you know, for the market in general, for GE in particular. I mean, they're dealing with all kinds of issues related to the virus. I mean, one of their biggest businesses is making jet engines. Not much need for them at this point when you consider how many planes aren't even flying because the demand for air travel has collapsed. So you've got that going on. Not like people are buying power turbines necessarily either, and that's big whether you're talking about, you know, traditional sort of energy sources or renewable energy. And, you know, the healthcare business might be doing okay for GE, but I'll tell you, you can see from the stock price that CEO Larry Culp's challenges in trying to revive this company are getting larger by the day, and that's what really jumps out when it comes to where General Electric is at this point.
Well, and you mentioned the airlines. We're going to get some insight with Bob Crandall. He ran American Airlines for over a decade, so we'll talk a little bit more about that. Right now, though, let's talk a little bit about volatility, because Sarah Ponsek, you've written on the terminal about volatility kicking up once again, and it's interesting. I do feel like optimism from last week has been replaced by some pessimism and also people realizing, investors in particular, that we're all going to have to be patient. It's going to take a while to come back.
Right. It's notable that the tone of the trade has really shifted over the past couple of days. Right off the top, you mentioned the 1-2 punch being Dr. Fauci and then Jerome Powell today. And we have continued to hear these sobering comments, one from Fauci yesterday about how if economies do reopen, that may worsen the trajectory of the virus. Then Powell today really just warning that the risks for the economy are very much to the downside. And they're not the only ones that we have heard from, too. I mean, we have heard from many Fed speakers in the past couple of days who have warned about the risks to the economy. We've heard from famed investors, the likes of Stanley Druckenmiller, David Tepper today, joining the chorus, coming out and just pointing out that the risks to the downside for this equity market are to the downside, making comments about high valuations and the risk reward, what you do with that, them all basically saying they wouldn't want to be invested very much in this market right now. You put it all together, and the S&P was up 30% at some point from the bottom on March 23rd. There is this push and pull, and you have to imagine if the pull is going to start to beat the downside.
Sarah, why did it take so long? I mean, I feel like, you know, these are smart people, obviously, especially Fauci and Powell, but they are saying something that's been sitting there right in front of us.
Right. I mean, it did take so long. And we have heard this term so many times, and it's yet to be known whether or not we are in a true bull market or if this really is just a bear market bounce, as it's called. But the fact of the matter is, typically, when you are in very serious downtrends in the market, it's very normal for you to see these strange, you could say, periods where the market just takes off to the upside and no one really understands why. Something I will point out, though, is that if you actually look at the breakdown of the market since the bottom of March 23rd, a lot of it really does have to do with rallies in tech, rallies in your mega cap companies like Microsoft, like Amazon, like Netflix. Rather, you look at small caps, you look at your cyclical areas of the market, they're very much still hurting. Even if you look at the equal weight S&P 500, for example, it's still down more than 20% this year. So parts of the market are still showing worry. However, the rally that we saw is just remarkable, and now there's a question mark over it.
Right.
Hey, Dave, just got about 30 seconds left here. Anything to build on that? Because you've been looking at a lot of the internals comparing small caps to, large caps. You've been looking at a lot of this.
Right. I mean, you're going to look at the Russell 2000 being down 27% for the year now. That's twice as much as the S&P 500. You know, bear in mind why this week. I mean, we're kind of in a lull with first quarter earnings. Yeah. We don't get the retailers until next week, and they really kind of cap the season, if you will. So it's not like you necessarily have a lot of company news to trade off of. Right. So these kind of comments from Jay Powell and from Dr. Fauci, I mean, they definitely get people's attention.
In the absence of things to get excited about, people actually look around and say, this isn't great. All right, Dave Wilson, thank you so much. We're going to catch up with you a little later on for your chart and stock of the day. Our thanks as well, of course, as always, to Sarah Ponczek joining us from Florida. Cross-asset reporter, one of the most prolific writers at Bloomberg across the empire, Carol. So coming up, the question remains, how do you get back? You mentioned Bob Crandall. He's going to be along with us. He ran American Airlines. We heard a little bit about the airlines a little bit earlier in the show, and also restaurants, talking about that as well.
We've had a lot of conversations about this, and I think this is one of the trickier ones. I mean, we've had conversations, Jason, between you and myself, and I've seen a lot of people come and talk to me on Twitter about saying, I don't need to go to a restaurant. Yeah. I don't need to take that risk. And for what? For an experience where I'm going to be served by somebody wearing a mask and gloves, separated. The ambience of going out is certainly going to be different. So we're going to catch up with a restaurateur, Rick Wallstead. He's got properties in Atlanta, Connecticut. So I'm curious to see what he has to say. Also, when you talk about industries being impacted, electrification, and our Bloomberg Green team has a story about that. Investors thinking about it's not going to go as planned.
And let's not forget, this is a medical crisis. After all, Ian Lustbader, our go-to doc, he's going to be back with us in just a few minutes. In the meantime, let's do the Business Week Bite of the Day. It's one number that tells us a lot. Carol, today's number is 30%.
It is indeed. A new report from Bankrate shows that 30% of U.S. adults have seen their household income decrease as a direct result of the virus outbreak. Additionally, nearly 1 in 5 have less emergency savings now than before the pandemic, while 16% have taken on more debt. Of the 3 in 10 whose household incomes have decreased, 36% have dipped into emergency savings, more than 3 times as many as those whose income has increased or stayed the same. Bottom line, this isn't easy, and a lot of people don't have safety nets, and it's getting pretty desperate out there.
And folks are struggling, that's for sure, and it's going to continue. Let's get over to Bob Moon. He's got world and national headlines. Hey there, Bob.
Jason, the United Nations is forecasting the coronavirus pandemic will shrink the world economy by 3.2% this year, the sharpest contraction since the Great Depression in the 1930s. The UN's mid-year report released today said COVID-19 is expected to slash global economic output by nearly $8.5 trillion over the next 2 years, wiping out nearly all gains of the past 4 years. President Andres Manuel Lopez Obrador is pledging to begin reopening Mexico starting Monday, even as that country saw its largest one-day jump in coronavirus cases. Hospitals are reeling and testing remains inadequate there. State by state, the U.S. of A. is reopening for business with varying adherence to recommendations from the scientists. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
The state of Connecticut will relax conditions next week, and Governor Ned Lamont said in a Bloomberg interview he's acting with appropriate caution.
All those curves are bending in the right direction. We have extra hospitalization capacity there, which was a key metric. We got track and trace and testing ready to go. And these are the key metrics we needed to give people confidence we could begin to reopen on May 20th.
Governor Lamont expects many of the residents who previously commuted to offices in New York City will telecommute at least part of the week permanently. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
A coalition of U.S. states, environmentalists, and an American Indian tribe are seeking to revive a moratorium on coal sales from federal lands. It was imposed under former President Barack Obama, then dumped by the Trump administration. Global News 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
To be in the markets now, you need nerves of steel.
I mean, we're not supposed to be hysterical.
And Bloomberg surveillance.
Let's just start with something extreme.
What are you comparing this to?
Tom Keene and Jonathan Farrell.
Your call, your message to your clients on a morning like this morning.
Weekday mornings at 7 Eastern.
What are you doing to adjust your economic growth numbers?
On Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Fiscal stimulus could really shake things in the months ahead.
Bloomberg, the world is listening.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, Mom, we'll figure it out.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies? Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers. 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
Bloomberg and
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
For more than 20 years, Asda supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. Asda, we're all in this together.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Hi, I'm Dan from NatWest Manchester branch. We know life's hard right now, but if coronavirus has affected your finances, we're doing our best to make things easier. If you're a personal customer, you can request a 3-month payment break if you're struggling with your mortgage, loan or credit card. Or if you need help with an existing arranged overdraft, you could get £500 interest-free for 3 months. Remember, every one of us is here to support you. There are lots of ways we could help. Search NatWest Coronavirus.
Eligibility and conditions apply to payment breaks. Overdraft up to your agreed limit if lower than £500.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others. 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Let's be honest, we all spend too much of our day on social media. But at least you can spend your endless scroll time to discover new things on TuneIn. Follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to always be in the know about the best new stuff streaming in the app. From breaking news stories and live sporting events.
Yeah, but it's unique times. I think there's unique circumstances, and we're trying to
standout stations and podcasts. Stay in touch with TuneIn.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1983, MLB right fielder Reggie Jackson is the first major leaguer to strike out 2,000 times.
Reggie Jackson is the batter. See right here. Right one. Fouls it back. The fastball is 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. There they go. Struck him out. Ball game is over.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pella. 3-week low for the U.S. stock market. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining right now. The S&P down 50, a drop of 1.7%. The Dow down 461, down 1.9%. NASDAQ is down 157, a drop of 1.8%. Stocks declined after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant, and tensions with China flared. Treasuries and the dollar advanced. Right now we've got the 10-year up 8/32 with a yield of 0.64%. Gold is up 0.5%, 17.11 the ounce, and West Texas Intermediate crude down 3.3% right now, back below $25 a barrel at $24.91. Again, recapping, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all lower. S&P down 50, a drop right now of 1.8%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. It is Wednesday, an interesting week where we've heard a lot about, basically, we've got to take this slowly in terms of reopening. We do want to get to our virus update. What I noticed, Jason, is it's back among our most read stories on the Bloomberg, because I remember last week with stocks rallying and a lot of optimism, the update had slipped down the list on the Bloomberg terminal, but it's back up there, and it's on an interesting day and week where a lot's going on. Let's get to Dr. Ian Lustbader. He's one of our go-to voices when it comes to the virus, clinical associate professor of medicine at NYU Langone Medical Center. He joins us once again on the phone in New York City. So good to have you back with us, Dr. Lustbader. You know, it's interesting, and I thought something that really stuck out with me from Dr. Anthony Fauci this week, when I think he was pushed by senators to say, well, wait a minute, maybe you don't know everything about the virus, and maybe some other countries are doing it differently, like Sweden, and maybe that makes more sense. And he basically said, we still don't know about this virus. Now, all of a sudden, we're talking about children being impacted in a different way. It's just a reminder of how much we don't know. So I'm curious, here we are in our 9th week of being home. How do you see things when it comes to the virus?
I hope you guys are doing well, and I certainly would agree with Dr. Fauci on this. This is a unique virus. It does seem to be related to other coronaviruses, but really seems to behave, in a different way. Most coronaviruses, like adenoviruses or rhinoviruses, will give you more of the common cough, cold, that sort of thing. But to have all your organs involved, virus, on pathology seen in the kidney, in the heart, in the liver, in the gut, in the brain, causing strokes and pulmonary emboli and clots. That is unique, and we don't know a lot about the virus, and we certainly don't know whether a vaccine will work or how well it will work, and that's certainly one of the big areas of interest recently. So definitely a lot of challenges, and exactly as you also say, that for a long time, since January, we thought kids would be relatively spared. And it did seem that the sickest patients generally, and that's still more or less the case, men above 60, 65 with other issues, obesity, diabetes, heart disease. We certainly see women, and now we're certainly seeing children. So the whole sort of understanding as to who are the risk groups and what to do is a challenge. But we're certainly encouraged by some news of at least starting some trials on vaccines, and many companies are looking into it. One company that's very interesting is Moderna doing the messenger RNA, and we're going to be starting that study at NYU and at some other sites.
So before we dig any more into the vaccine element, Ian, I want to ask you, on these new findings, and which are, as both you and Carol say, somewhat troubling in terms of how the disease presents and manifests, and the people who it affects, how does that change the medical approach, and how should it change our approach as we do think about reopening and further spikes in infection?
Well, in terms of reopening, I think it's hard to pick a specific date. Certainly in New York, I think we picked June 6th. Why not June 5th or June 7th or June 1st? That's sort of an arbitrary time. And I think no matter when you go back, there will be some risk, and certainly some increased risk in spikes. And of course, if we had really a treatment, and people are looking at different treatments, sort of this triple cocktail of some anti-HIV medications and ribavirin and interferon and so forth. We may have a cocktail, but that's certainly not for outpatients. It's not for the patient who comes in with a cough and diarrhea, sore throat, in your office, and you'd like to give them a pill to prevent them from progressing, not to mention quickly doing a test, such as a nasal swab. So you're right. I think seeing more children now is very confusing. Is the virus mutating? Have we been missing this? We don't really know. And hopefully, again, something like a vaccine will give people more confidence. One thing we're doing is certainly sending a lot more blood tests. So blood tests for antibodies are much easier to obtain, and I'm certainly seeing a number of patients in my practice who are antibody positive, and we think that should make it relatively safer to go back, but we really don't know that. It's really the same concept of the vaccine. Just because you have antibodies doesn't always mean you're not going to get the disease. Think of influenza, right? We get a yearly influenza shot. Does not protect us necessarily, or it may help. HIV. People have high antibodies to HIV virus, but unfortunately still have progressive disease. Herpes. People will get herpes outbreaks, and they have herpes antibodies. So this goes all the way back to when vaccines started in 1796, at least in the West. When Edward Jenner vaccinated a 13-year-old boy with cowpox vaccinia to try and prevent smallpox. That happened to work well, and that's been our model really ever since that, is to give low doses of the virus or inactivated, and we have vaccines now for bacteria like pneumonia, pneumococcus, not all pneumonias, but pneumococcal pneumonia, tetanus, and a variety of different vaccines. And most usually work, but typically they reduce the symptoms. They don't always 100% prevent.
And that's a really important point. All right, we're going to
terrifying.
Yeah, it's scary. It's scary. All right, we're going to continue our conversation in just a few minutes with Dr. Ian Lustbader, Clinical Associate Professor of Medicine at NYU's Langone Medical Center. He joins us on the phone, as he does most weeks, from New York City.
Yeah, looking forward to continuing that conversation. I do feel like, it's troubling. There's a lot we don't know, and that's why it makes it so tricky. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Massar along with Jason Kelly tracking the markets. We'll get those numbers for you shortly. We are seeing some selling in this Wednesday trade. This is Bloomberg Radio.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Slowly but surely, the economy is reawakening. New Jersey will allow non-essential construction to resume next week, as well as curbside pickup for non-essential retailers. New York's North Country region will reopen Friday. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is telling pro sports teams to come on down for both practice and games. That includes teams from other states that still face restrictions at home. The optimism isn't being felt on Wall Street. Stocks remain sharply lower after Fed Chair Jerome Powell said economic risks from the pandemic remain significant. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 529, the S&P 500 down 59, the Nasdaq Composite down 197. For airlines, it'll be a long recovery. The International Air Transport Association sees demand lagging below its pre-pandemic forecast for at least 5 years. Traffic next year will be down as much as 40% from previous estimates. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg Terminal is your power up, connecting you to real-time financial data, market-moving news, powerful analytics, and an influential network of financial decision-makers around the world. Share ideas, negotiate trades, and gain the insight you need to make more informed decisions. See how the Terminal can take your workflow to the next level at Bloomberg.com/professional.
Are you interested in
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
TSB believe in people helping people. That's why they've created TSB Smart Agent, a new secure way for TSB to answer your personal and business banking questions online. Find out more at tsb.co.uk. Automated service available 24/7. TSB partners available 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care. About each other. About our planet. about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
Typical Danny. Imagine trying to unwind at a spa weekend and you wind up getting your mud pack all over your fave personalised dressing gown. But no worries, just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Max is dreaming of riding a giant chameleon whilst fighting a clan of ninjas. But in reality, he's helping fight COVID-19 in his sleep. Like thousands of others, he's joined the Dream Team. By using the Dream Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
You go, Max. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the Dream Team tonight.
Dreamlab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
You love TuneIn for live-breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Coming up, we are going to continue our conversation with Dr. Ian Lustbader, always giving us a good reality check. It's Reality Check Week, after all, here on Bloomberg Business Week, on where we may go from here. He's got a catbird seat here in New York City and a lot of smart insights about the vaccine world especially.
Yeah, it has been with us from day one, reporting about this. All right, let's get back to your top business stories and another check on that trading day. Here is once again Charlie Pellet.
Hi, thank you very much, Carol Master. Happy Wednesday. Looking at red on the screen here with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all tumbling to a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant and tensions with China flared. S&P down 59, a drop right now of 2.1%. The Dow down 535, that is a drop of 2.2%. And NASDAQ down 178 points, a drop there of 2%. We've got the 10-year up 8/30 seconds, the yield now 0.64%. Gold up 0.5%, 17.11 the ounce. Crude retreating by 2.3%. West Texas Intermediate crude 25.19 a barrel. Keeping an eye on Abbott shares, they are trading lower right now. Abbott down 1.6% according to a report from NYU. The coronavirus test from Abbott Labs used at the White House to get rapid answers to whether someone is infected may miss as many as half of positive cases. Again, Abbott shares down now by 1.7%. The nation's top government scientists are warning about the risks of reopening the U.S. economy too quickly without adequate testing for the coronavirus. So where are we in terms of testing? And what do we know about so-called herd immunity and reinfection? Dr. Andrew Pekosh is professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health.
Studies are starting to roll in. It looks like people who are infected with the virus that causes COVID-19 do generate an antibody response in their blood, and in those antibodies there are these antibodies that we think are the protective ones, the one that will keep you from getting reinfected.
The Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. Among the closely watched technology companies reporting after the bell today will be Cisco Systems. Shares lower now by 3.2%. Recapping equities lower with the S&P down 61, down 2.1%. I'm Charlie Pelleton. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Let's continue our conversation with Dr. Ian Lustbader, Clinical Associate Professor of Medicine at NYU Langone's Medical Center, joining us on the phone from New York City. So, Ian, we were talking a little bit about vaccines. Do you have any sort of latest thoughts, or what are you reading and hearing about timelines? We heard what Dr. Fauci said yesterday. What's the buzz among the doctors?
So typically, most vaccines take quite a while. They go through different phases, a safety phase, and then an effectiveness phase, and then a dose phase. I mean, there are different, stages to really get this. And in the old days, even dating back to 1796 with Edward Jenner, typically, you give a low dose of an inactivated or weakened, virus or bacteria. You get an immune response, and usually it's protective. As we said, that doesn't work all the time. For example, HIV or influenza, herpes, others will get a response, but not always a totally effective one. What seems encouraging, hopefully, is the Moderna style vaccine, which is something called messenger RNA, where messenger RNA is inoculated instead of, the COVID virus itself or an inactivated COVID virus. It's a messenger RNA which codes for a small part of the virus, say the spike protein, that should be recognized as foreign and generate an immune response that hopefully is protective, similar to what they were talking about at Johns Hopkins, which is, convalescent plasma. People have high antibodies. It does seem to help people who are very sick with the virus. So hopefully, similar concept. We'll have to see if it works. The messenger RNA is injected. It's incorporated into the human or host cells. It uses the cells, your own cells, machinery to make this protein. It's not a complete virus. It's just this, spike protein. The body recognizes that, forms antibodies, and then we have to see, will that really protect you? And that it takes time then to have people exposed to the real COVID virus to see if that vaccine really does protect you. But it's a unique way. It's a faster way, really, of getting people immunized. So I think that and other companies are working on different techniques, Pfizer and some other companies. But just like with Abbott, where you have a test and it turns out that it's not 100% accurate, or you may need to do it several times on a patient to finally get a positive. When you know they're sick with COVID and their swab comes back negative, that's frustrating when you know they have it. Hopefully, this messenger RNA vaccine, which is really unique, we're looking at different ways of getting the body to develop an immune response that are safer, for example, than giving someone a live virus like mumps, measles, or rubella, or attenuated viruses. So the hope is this can also be manufactured, more quickly and administered more quickly, but we don't really have the results of that yet. Those studies are just starting now.
I have to say, you made me nervous, though, when we first kicked off and you said, we don't know ultimately if a vaccine will work.
Right. Carol, I hate making you nervous
but you know what I mean? But yet, I just, because everyone keeps pointing to that is the way we get back to normal, Ian. And I do wonder, if we're not able to do that, what does that mean? Do we have to just accept that there's going to be more risk in our society and people will lose their lives as a result of it?
I think there's always risk. I think there is actually a risk of people staying home. I see many patients who are very upset, sad, depressed. So I do think we need to edge back to returning. I think we'd all feel safer with a vaccine. This, to me, seems very encouraging. But again, it's uncharted territory, so we really will have to just wait and see if antibodies are produced, and B, if those antibodies really protect you. We certainly know we have convalescent plasma, to the whole virus, which does seem to help very sick patients, and we're doing studies on that for hospitalized patients. That's an intravenous infusion. We're not going to give that to people in the office who come in with a cough or a cold. Right. But hopefully the vaccine, which should be faster, easier to develop and hopefully then manufacture for a large number of people, even if it provides some immunity or reduces the severity of the illness or shortens the illness, I think that would still be very encouraging, but we don't know yet.
Right. Absolutely. A lot we don't know, and you are right to bring all of that to our attention. Dr. Ian Lustbader, always good to catch up with you. Really appreciate you taking some time. We know it's a very, very busy time for any doctor, especially one on the front lines like you are. Clinical Associate Professor of Medicine at NYU's Langone Medical Center on the phone from New York City, Carol.
And the thing is, I guess it's just we keep pointing to, here's how we get back to normal, right? Or normal, right? And I just do wonder, it's going to be probably a variety of things that are going to have to be done for people who get sick, but maybe there's a way to mitigate the worst effects of it, and maybe
it's not binary. No. We're going to have to live with this in some form or fashion. I think that's what we're learning every day.
Yeah, I think so too. And just have to learn to isolate the most vulnerable populations if we can and take care of those that are really hurt. All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Back over to Bob Moon. Hey, Bob.
Carol, the U.S. economy faces unprecedented risks from the coronavirus if fiscal and monetary policymakers don't rise to the challenge. That assessment today from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell in remarks to a virtual event hosted by the Peterson Institute for International Economics today. Powell also says the federal government has some temporary tactics that can be put in place to help the economy stay afloat.
For example, our authority to extend credit directly to private non-financial businesses and state and local governments exists only in unusual and exigent circumstances and with the consent of the Secretary of the Treasury. When this crisis is behind us, we will put these emergency tools away.
Powell pushed back against the notion of deploying negative interest rates. What's driving the reopening of the American economy? In the state of New Jersey, it starts with cars. Governor Phil Murphy announced a series of guidelines today that will lift some restrictions on businesses in the state. Non-essential retail businesses are being allowed to reopen with curbside pickup only. And Murphy also says his state will allow for drive-by and driving gatherings to happen.
We're acknowledging that gatherings, in fact, are okay in vehicles. When is that effective? By definition, effective immediately.
Murphy signed an executive order today that allows non-essential construction sites to come back online so long as social distancing and sanitation guidelines stay in place. Global News 24 hours a day, on air, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, we understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/seize change.
Business is constantly evolving. Is your financial printer evolving to keep ahead of the curve? At Command Financial, we are redefining financial printing by providing industry-leading expertise, leveraging technology, and honing processes and best practices. Every day, Command helps SEC registrants, as well as members of their working groups, including securities attorneys and investment bankers, prepare, file, and disseminate regulatory and disclosure documents, such as registration statements, M&A documents, and mutual fund prospectuses and reports. Command provides a full range of services to help you effectively complete your deal, meet your disclosure requirements, and achieve your shareholder communications objectives. Visit our website at commandfinancial.com and learn how we're evolving, not only with the times, but also with your business requirements. Command Financial, redefining financial printing.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance.
Somebody say just eat.
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Justeat.
Somebody say just eat.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores online, subject to availability.
Hi, I'm Dan from NatWest Manchester branch. We know life's hard right now, but if coronavirus has affected your finances, we're doing our best to make things easier. If you're a personal customer, you can request a 3-month payment break if you're struggling with your mortgage, loan or credit card. Or if you need help with an existing arranged overdraft, you could get £500 interest-free for 3 months. Remember, every one of us is here to support you. There are lots of ways we could help. Search NatWest Coronavirus.
Eligibility and conditions apply to payment breaks. Overdraft up to your agreed limit if lower than £500.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Max is dreaming of riding a giant chameleon whilst fighting a clan of ninjas. But in reality, he's helping fight COVID-19 in his sleep. Like thousands of others, he's joined the Dream Team. By using the Dream Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments.
I'll fight you.
You go, Max. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the Dream Team tonight.
Dream Lab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
Sports and festivals on hold. Weddings and christenings on hold. Marathons on hold. But not everything is on hold.
My name's Lynn, and I have terminal cancer. I don't know how many weeks I have left.
In this time of national emergency, Marie Curie nurses and hospices are needed more than ever. We can only care for dying people like Lynn if you donate. Visit mariecurie.org.uk to donate to our emergency appeal.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your 7th inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs. Didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting 9 podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of like active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn. Lines and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. The Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ, they're all declining. In fact, stocks making a run for the worst level of the day. We're bouncing along the bottom here with the S&P down 62 points now. That is a drop of 2.1%. The Dow down 552 points, down 2.3%. NASDAQ down 195 points, down by 2.2%. We've got the 10-year up 8/30 seconds. The yield now 0.64%. Stocks tumbling to a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. You heard him live here on Bloomberg Radio. Also, tensions with China are flaring. As for gold, it is up now by 0.6%, $17.11 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 2%, $25.26 a barrel. Recapping equities lower with the S&P down 65, close to the low of the day, down now by 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. Jason Kelly and Carol Massar here with you on a Wednesday afternoon. Well, many of us are working from home. We know a lot of traders are working from home, and there's quite a callback in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. It's the excerpt from a really terrific new book. It is called Flash Crash, A Trading Savant, A Global Manhunt, and the Most Mysterious Market Crash in History. Liam Vaughn wrote it. Joel Weber put it in his magazine, and Joel joins us from Brooklyn. This is an amazing read. I feel like this is a little bit, and I've said this before, Joel, a little bit of you're revealing your past as the editor of Bloomberg Markets here. I love this.
Well, first of all, it's not my magazine; it's our magazine.
Of course, there you go.
And the only way we can, make it work is by having some pretty incredible writers and reporters, and this article, which is an excerpt of Liam's book, is really kind of a case in point, and it's an incredible story, and one that is actually, I think, kind of relevant for the moment, because obviously the flash crash was the biggest event until basically March.
That's what's amazing. Like, I forgot. First of all, it's 10 years ago, and that's like, to get my head around it. I mean, I know time, we're all living in this very weird, bizarro world right now when it comes to time, but I was like, wow, that was 10 years ago that this happened. And I remember it was kind of nonstop reporting because it was a really big deal, and trying to figure out how did it happen. And then as the stories, the details, I was going to say, this is like Netflix and Amazon, wanting to already turn this into a movie, but apparently they're already going to do that, is what I understand.
They are. And, the book is, it's basically just out, Flash Crash. I feel like the book reading material next to my bedside table just keeps getting higher, right. And it keeps getting higher actually with colleagues who are writing books, like there's Sarah Fryer, who's written this great Instagram book, and Susan Burfield, who just came out with her book, which we talked about on last week's show. And this one, I think, is right up there. And I think, the thing that's also kind of amazing about this is, like, here's this guy who's basically a work-from-home trader, right? And, like, if ever there's a role model that you probably don't want to emulate, but also he did make a lot of money while he did it, like, here's some inspiration. And, the thing that I kind of think bears some discussion here is that he was basically put under house arrest. Right? That his sentence was basically waived. So they said, you have to spend a year at home. And he basically went into, house arrest right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we're all living through NAV on this one.
So we're all the trader now. All right, Liam Vaughn, come on in here. You wrote it. We've been talking about you behind your back. Congratulations on the book. First of all, incredibly timely in a lot of ways for all the reasons that Joel just laid out. Remind us who this guy is.
So Navinder Singh Sarao was a sort of very ordinary guy who grew up in quite a working class area of West London called Hounslow, about a mile away from the Heathrow Airport. So literally, his house, you can count the windows on the planes as they kind of land. And he was a gifted kid, a bit of an odd kid, but very good at maths. And one day saw an advert in a newspaper that said, "Wanted traders, must work well under pressure." And he applied for this advert, and it was for a trading arcade. And it was about as far away from kind of Wall Street and the whole, world of high finance as you can really imagine. But Nav had this amazing gift, and he got, he sort of arrived in the markets at this really crucial time when the pits had just closed, but there wasn't such a thing as really algorithmic trading yet. So if you were a really gifted kind of gamer type, or if you had, very good mathematical skills, you could really profit, very quickly from short-term trading. So Nav, became very, very quickly incredibly good and incredibly wealthy, and was a millionaire in a fairly short shrift. But the reason he became famous is not because of that. It's because once high-frequency traders do start to kind of enter the marketplace, human scalpers, as they're called, like him, found that they were increasingly getting beaten to the punch, and it was hard to make a living anymore. And rather than sort of bowing out at that point, Nav made this fateful decision that he was going to fight back, and so he built an algorithm of his own, which he called Nav Trader. And what it did is essentially fire false orders into the market in order to deceive the algorithms about whether the market was about to go up or down. And this machine, even though he kind of came up with it off the top of his head, didn't know anyone in the kind of industry, proved to be incredibly successful. And by the time the FBI knocked on his door in 2015, he was worth $70 million.
Jeez. And I feel like we all learned about spoofing too, right? We all, if we didn't know about it, we learned about it, because that was certainly something he was in on big time.
Well, the interesting thing about spoofing is that it only became illegal in 2011 with the introduction of Dodd-Frank. And before that, it was kind of understood that in financial markets, if you place an order, it's no indication really of whether you intend to take a long position or a short position. It's no statement about your true intentions. It's just an order.
Right.
And, a lot of people believe that sort of deception in the markets is part and parcel of the cut and thrust of financial markets. But in 2011, after a lot of lobbying by some high-frequency trading firms, they introduced a new rule which outlawed spoofing for the first time. So basically, if you imagine high-frequency trading firms are just looking at all the orders in the order book coming in and using that to statistically analyze whether the market's about to go up or down, and then using very fast computers to jump ahead of that. And so if you spoof the market by placing orders that you don't intend to actually execute, that you're going to cancel, you deceive the robots, really, about the sort of true state of supply and demand. And they react to it, even though they're, hugely sophisticated firms run by all these kind of PhDs. They were actually, in this instance, quite easy to fool.
Well, gotta say, it's just a fascinating excerpt, and I can only imagine how great the rest of the book is. So something certainly to put on your reading list right now.
Quarantine read.
Liam Vaughan, thank you so much. Bloomberg News senior reporter joining us on the phone, and of course our Bloomberg Business Week editor Joel Weber joining us on the phone as well. It's already been picked up for development in a movie starring Dev Patel. So get ready, everybody. It's coming to the big screen.
Dev Patel, the Slumdog Millionaire, right?
Yeah. I can already see it.
I can totally see it. I can 100% see it just reading this piece.
There's a little snippet, right, about talking about how he was when he was trading and just so focused. And so you can totally see it up on the big screen.
All right. For those of you listening in New York, D.C., and San Francisco, watching on YouTube, Bloomberg Business Week continues. If you're listening on Bloomberg 106.1 in Boston, Bay State Business is next. Stick with us here. We're going to break down what Jay Powell said this morning. It has certainly been the big story of the day. It's affecting markets. As Carol said at the top of the show, the two in that 1-2 punch of Fauci and Powell. We're going to bring you some of that sound, and we're going to break it down with our team in just a minute. This is Bloomberg.
News without analysis.
This is important information from the government about getting tested for coronavirus. You will be able to have a test if you have symptoms and you fall into any of the following categories: essential workers doing vital jobs to keep the country going, people whose work can't be done from home, for example, construction workers or delivery drivers, and people aged 65 and over. If you are in any of these groups and anyone else in your household has symptoms, they can also get tested. To find out how to get a test, go to gov.uk/coronavirus. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Pulls over a man into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship featuring Clemson and LSU.
There's going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Pass to the 5! Touchdown! Search classic game replays to listen for free.
Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a podcast on TuneIn. For expert analysis straight from the WWE to Steve Austin's no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling to listen.
To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip 3, have a game night. In fact, why not make it a game day? Whether you're quarantined with kids or roommates, nothing passes the time like a game of cards, Pictionary, charades, dominoes, or Never Have I Ever. If you've got the hardware, break out the video game console and enjoy hours of guilt-free gaming. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen From Home on TuneIn.
4 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We move into the final hour of trading on this Wednesday. U.S. stocks at the lows of the day. This update brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network for the 6th straight time. J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth number 1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. S&P now lower by 68 points, down 2.4%. The Dow is down 611 points. That is a drop there of 2.6%, while NASDAQ is down 216, a drop of 2.3%. 10-year up 830 seconds with a yield there of 0.64%. Stay with Bloomberg Radio right through the close to see how things shake out and, of course, how Asian markets react tonight. Stocks now at a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. Also, tensions with China flared, treasuries and the dollar advanced. Powell's remarks came at a virtual event hosted by the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington. Powell said the economic effects that we have seen from the coronavirus are like we have never seen before.
The scope and speed of this downturn are without modern precedent, significantly worse than any recession since World War II. We are seeing a severe decline in economic activity and employment, and already the job gains of the last decade have been erased.
He also pushed back against the prospect that the central bank would deploy negative interest rates in the U.S., though he did not fully rule out the option as a potential tool in the future. Airline shares plummeting to the lowest since 2013 after a warning that demand for flights will lag behind pre-coronavirus forecast for at least through 2025. Among some of the U.S.-based airlines, UAL down 8.9%, American down 5.6%, Delta slumping 6.6%, Southwest Airlines lower now by 4.6%. After the bell, we will be hearing from Cisco. Cisco shares down 3.2%. Recapping equities lower with the S&P down 60, down 2.1%, gold up 0.6%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
You're listening to Bloomberg Business Week with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, it's the top story of the day by far. Certainly, Chairman Jay Powell's comments having a negative effect on the markets and certainly the sentiment out there. You heard a little bit of what he had to say there in Charlie Pellet's newscast. Let's hear a little bit more, if we can, from the Fed Chairman Powell. He spoke earlier today, as Charlie mentioned, at a virtual event with the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington.
While the economic response has been both timely and appropriately large, it may not be the final chapter, given that the path ahead is both highly uncertain and subject to significant downside risks. Economic forecasts are uncertain in the best of times, and today the virus raises a new set of questions.
All right, so if you weren't sobered by Dr. Anthony Fauci yesterday, you definitely were today by Fed Chief Jay Powell, of course, speaking today earlier in a video conference, a virtual conference with the Peterson Institute for International Economics. So let's get into this with our economics team. Kathleen Hayes is with us, Global Economics and Policy Editor at Bloomberg News, on the phone from the Poconos. Yelena Shaletyeva, our Senior U.S. Economist at Bloomberg Economics, on the phone from Long Island. I mean, clearly our top story today is what we heard from Fed Chief Jay Powell. And we've been calling it the 1-2 punch, Yelena and Kathleen, coming after Dr. Fauci, what he said yesterday, which was very sobering, and then to hear from Jay Powell again today, also very sobering when it comes to the outlook. Kathleen, let me start with you. What was your feeling when you heard that from Jay Powell?
Well, I'll tell you, when I was waiting for it to start, I was tweeting out a couple different things. And one of the first things I tweeted was, countdown to Powell. Let's see how adamantly he rejects negative rates.
He did.
And then when Adam Posen started Peterson Institute for International Economics asking questions, he had kind of broad, interesting questions. I was thinking, come on, Adam, you got to get to negative rates. I tweeted, please, Adam. And just as soon as I finished, this was on his list. We know it was. Anyway, he asked the question. And as expected, Jay Powell, said, the punchline was, no, we haven't changed our mind. We're not going to move towards negative rates. We've got tools. Our tools are working. And remember, it's a little technical, but there are money market funds in this country. We've got a different kind of financial system. It's another reason why they don't even want to think about this. But I think it was also the fact that he said, basically, there is potentially more to do monetary and fiscal. The longer you stay with these bad unemployment levels, people might lose their jobs permanently. Their careers might be ruined.
It gets sticky, right?
But the thing is, though, I think what's interesting to me, you guys, is that a couple of others, notably Jim Bullard, St. Louis Fed, have said, look, if we don't reopen soon, now, as we can, safely, but still, we got to go, you guys, we could have a grand scale of bankruptcies. That's what he said yesterday, and even a depression. Jay Powell hasn't taken it quite that far, but I think that's something that's a little bit different from what Anthony Fauci is saying. The epidemiologists are saying don't open, don't risk any more deaths, etc. But I think there's another way of looking at this as, we're going to kill some part of the economy or even our people if we don't move. But
I will say, though, Kathleen, is that Fauci did say yesterday, and he was very clear that I'm a medical expert, but he said if we come back too soon, we have a second wave, that will impact the economy even harder. So he did make the connection there.
Well, I think it's some people would say ultimately we are going to have deaths. That you flatten the curve, you just move the deaths out into the future. But thank God you don't overwhelm the hospitals. A lot of people, Sweden, for example, arguing for you got to get herd immunity because the vaccine is going to take a while to get here.
Right. All right. So Yelena, come on in here. What does Chair Powell tell us in light of the data that you're seeing? What is he looking at that makes that sort of gives him this perspective, and how does it affect your outlook hearing what he had to say?
Everything he said today was actually quite in line with what we are expecting in terms of economic outlook. So they're looking at the same data, and the recovery depends on unknowable, and I'm quoting Chair Powell, questions related to the coronavirus. So there's a lot of uncertainty about how this reopening of states after the crisis will occur. So will we have another outbreak? Will it go slowly? So it seems like the consensus here is that it will go slowly. There will not be a V-shaped recovery, and the Fed is adjusting to that. And not only they are adjusting to that, but they stand ready to provide even more support to the economy than they have already done. So despite the unprecedented response that we have seen from them so far, they are ready to go further in terms of expanding the balance sheet, in terms of their forward guidance and so on. One thing, and Kathleen mentioned that earlier, and I would like to reiterate, not only did Powell reaffirm the stance on negative interest rates, but he emphasized the unanimous agreement on the FOMC that they're not ready to go there.
Mm-hmm. So, Kathleen, yes, there may be more that the Fed can do, but it also seems like he sent a pretty clear message to Capitol Hill that lawmakers need to step back in and do something. Did you hear and read that the same way?
Absolutely, and I think he's kind of said that before. And of course, Adam Posen asked him this kind of broad question again about, giving fiscal advice or taking a stance. But he hasn't been afraid to do that. I think one of his last public speeches, people were much more impressed by that. But I think he too can see that you need to do something, and you can't just let. If it's not working, the monetary policy we've done fiscally so far, you got to do whatever it takes, right? And the Congress has to come along. Of course, now we get into a much more a political territory the Fed doesn't have to face in the same way. Republicans, Democrats having a somewhat different view. Republicans saying, let's see how this all affects the economy. Democrats saying, no, we've got to go now. But definitely the Fed chair, I think, is making it pretty clear. If we don't, we have to do something, no matter how questionable it might be.
I just want to jump in just very quickly. Yelena, are you getting more nervous that we're going to be in a pretty severe recession on the other side, a little bit more protracted?
We will be, and that's not an if. This is about how long it will take us to get out of there.
Well, that's what I mean. Are you getting more nervous that it's going to go on much longer than everybody anticipated?
It will take years to get back to where we were. It will take at least 3 years to get to the same level we were before the crisis, not even talking about growth from there.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. Thank you for your insights, both of you. Yelena Shalecheva, Senior U.S. Economist for Bloomberg Economics, joining us on the phone, and Kathleen Hayes, Global Economics and Policy Editor, joining us from Pennsylvania.
She said 3 years, right, to get back to normal?
Yeah. I think that tracks with a lot of what we've been hearing. Yeah, for
totally.
sure.
All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Back over to Bob Moon we go. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Carol. COVID-19 could become an endemic like HIV. The World Health Organization said today. Executive Director Dr. Michael Ryan says the coronavirus could be with us for a long time.
This virus may become just another endemic virus in our communities, and this virus may never go away. HIV has not gone away, but we've come to terms with the virus, and we have found the therapies, and we've found the prevention methods, and people don't feel as scared as they did before.
Ryan warned against any attempt to predict how long the virus might keep circulating and called for a massive effort to counter it. At the same time, when it comes to letting healthy people return to the workplace, some early studies are showing encouraging results for people who've recovered from COVID-19. Bloomberg's Martin DeCaro reports.
Early antibody studies bode well for former coronavirus patients.
These antibodies that we think are the protective ones, the one that will keep you from getting reinfected.
Dr. Andy Pekos teaches molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. He says we still don't know how long any immunity will last.
If they last for 6 months, 12 months, then we'll be in a very different situation than if they start fading away within 2 or 3 months.
And those studies will necessarily take months to be conducted. Martin DeCaro, Bloomberg Radio.
The United Nations is forecasting the coronavirus pandemic will shrink the world economy by 3.2% this year. That's the sharpest contraction since the Great Depression. Global news, 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. I'm Bob Moon.
The tragedy of coronavirus continues. An entire continent is rocked to its core.
This is a wave that's crashed around the world.
Where is the information that's both local and global?
Do you expect loan losses to rise at European banks?
Bloomberg Daybreak Europe.
Do you see any signs of stabilization in the global economy?
Accurate everywhere. Weekdays at 1 a.m. Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hope you enjoyed your meal. And I just want to say, he's lucky to have a brother like you.
Lucky? Caring for my brother is far from easy. But he's a part of me, like my arms and legs, so I'll be his. No time for tired. Nothing can disable this love. He needs me, but I'm the lucky one, even though I need help now and then.
If you're caring for a loved one, visit aarp.org/caregiving for care guides and community. Support for your strength. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
In-depth analysis, concise reporting, need-to-know global business news. Around the world and across the markets, Bloomberg connects the dots for decision makers. Stay on top of today's headlines. Follow big breakthroughs in tech. Understand the latest political issues. See how the world's wealthiest are spending their money. Track what's happening in the markets. And much more. Subscribe today to Bloomberg, the global standard for business reporting. Get it all at Bloomberg.com/subscriptions.
There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Wash your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Avoid touching your eyes, nose, and mouth. Stay home when you are sick. Cover your cough or sneeze. Clean and disinfect frequently touched objects with household cleaning spray. For more information, visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. This message brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
The world's financial decision makers.
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Great. Really? Night, Steve. Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung rugged range.
This is a message from the government about the emergency measures to support the economy during the period of disruption caused by the coronavirus. To help you, your business, and your workers affected, you can apply for cash grants, business rate holidays, statutory sick pay relief packages, as well as the coronavirus job retention and self-employment income support schemes. For information, go to gov.uk/business-support now.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
If you're buying anything online, take care and don't pay by money transfer. Always pay by card. Take time to check the seller is genuine, and if you're unsure, then stop and don't send any money.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Want Apple's latest Mac?
From just £34 a month.
With no deposit.
Buy online now from krcs.co.uk. Your local Apple experts. And get your Mac with all this, plus 2 years warranty.
And free next day delivery.
See our full Apple range now at krcs.co.uk. Representative example, cash price 103306. 36 months at 33.97. Total payable 1222.92. Representative 11.9% APR.
What do you do to be an everyday superhero, like Dan?
So my baby boy Ben and me just wanted to share what we do to look after the environment. We put the wet wipes we use in the bin instead of down the loo. It would be pretty nasty if that lot ended up blocking our pipes.
Wet wipes and nappies block thousands of pipes every year. Save our sewers, rivers and seas by putting them in the bin, where they belong. Visit thameswater.co.uk/bin it. Together, we can care for the environment.
Breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. 43 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. A 600-point loss for the Dow Jones Industrial Average. S&P, NASDAQ also tumbling. Let's head right over to the First Word breaking news desk for today's afternoon call. Here he is, Bill Maloney.
And good afternoon, Charlie. That's right. U.S. stocks under pressure from the start today on Powell remarks and U.S.-China worries. Like you said, Dow is currently down 604 points. S&P's dropped 67. NASDAQ is lower by 2.3%. The U.S. 10-year yield at 0.65%. WTI crude futures fall 1.6%. Gold is trading higher by 12. And transports are down 229 points. In the Dow, only Merck gained, while American Express fell 6% and led to the downside. In deal news, PE firms are in talks to bid for eBay's European classifieds business. And in other news, U.S. Energy Chief signaled more aid for oil companies is unlikely. Hedge fund David Tepper said the stock market is the most overvalued ever outside of 1999, and General Electric traded at its lowest level since 2009. Wrapping things up, Cisco reports after the bell. Live from the First Regular News Desk, I'm Bill Maloney. Charlie?
Okay, I thank you very much, Bill Maloney. Cisco shares, by the way, down 3.6%. And to hear live breaking news over your Bloomberg, type Squawk, SQUAWK, on your terminal. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. Well, Bloomberg Green, it is brought to you by PGIM. Outlast today's uncertainty with the long-term perspective of PGIM, the investment management business of Prudential. Find out more at pgim.com. Carol?
Well, Jason, so much in our world, as we know, is not going as planned, and that applies to electrification. Writing about that in our Bloomberg Green segment. We're doing this every week, bringing you some of the coverage from our Bloomberg Green team. It's about how investors are really starting to think about this revolution and how it's going to look a little different post-COVID-19. Emily Chasin is sustainability editor at Bloomberg News. She joins us on the phone from New York City. Emily, so glad to have you here with us. Jason and I both love this vertical here at Bloomberg and glad that we can bring it out to our listeners. Tell us a little bit about electrification, right? Because we have been, I feel like, the last couple of years, and thank you, Elon Musk and others, all in on electrification in many different ways. Tell us about where we are and what happens because of the virus.
Yeah, so this is really interesting because before the virus, people thought the way to get more renewable power is to actually demand more power, right? So we need more things that demand electricity than demand gas. So that means you want an electric stove and a electric grill and not a natural gas station. You want electric cars and not internal combustion engines. You want electric heat pumps and energy storage, not diesel generators and fossil fuels, right? So we've been looking at this for a long time and saying we have to electrify everything if we're going to get to where we want to go on renewable energy goals to meet the Paris Climate Agreement. And what's happened with COVID is that suddenly the economics that were supporting a lot of that electrification are not really there for some of the things. So people are not that bullish right now on the ability of consumers to go out and buy an electric car. There are long waiting lists right now that have supported some electric car sales, but like they think people working from home, you might not have a reason to buy a car. You might not have the money to go buy a new car. You've lost your job. So there's a lot of changes there. And then some of the development stuff that had been planned has been shelved. And so it's just going to look a little bit different now, yeah. But it's still going to happen.
Right. And so happen at maybe a slower pace. So take us sort of a step down, if you can, Emily. Like where are you seeing the most dramatic either pullbacks and maybe where are you seeing some progress?
Well, I guess progress up front is the biggest issue is going to be the fleets, where you can electrify a fleet of cars rather than individuals buying a car, which is actually much more efficient, right? If you can run your whole business on electric cars or electric buses or electric work vehicles, electric factory vehicles, you'll save a lot of money on inputs. And honestly, that would probably still happen because the input there is like zero and you still have to pay a little bit for fossil fuels, but the impetus for some companies won't be as much as it was because they're not going to be saving as much money given the oil price crash.
Right. Hey, Emily, one thing I wonder, Jason and I have talked a lot on air, and we've all, tweeted out or sent out on social media, how the earth is looking with the, world shut down. People aren't driving cars, skies are clearer, less pollution. We hear about it on the West Coast. And I do wonder that awareness, raised awareness, does it stay with us on the other side and maybe conversely help in the electrification of the world? Or is it going to be even tougher if the economy, as we just talked with our economics team, we're talking about an economy that's going to take maybe 3 years to get back to where it was pre-COVID-19. I just wonder, what are the conversations you guys are having about that and what you're hearing?
Yeah, well, people all over seem really invested in resiliency. That resiliency is sort of becoming the theme of the decade, and people are saying, if we spend 3 years recovering from COVID-19, we can't go back to where we were. Everyone's talking about this Build Back Better idea, and so electrification is a huge part of that. And what's interesting is that things have just sort of moved around the world. Like when you look at overall power demand, it's only down about like 10% to 13% in most places. So we're still using very similar amounts of electricity and power to run the economy, even though we're doing it not in centralized ways anymore.
It's all that streaming we're all at home and into the wee hours.
Burn it. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, are investors sort of backing off of this, Emily? I mean, ultimately, this comes down to, in part, whether the money is flowing to the right sorts of projects.
Right. Well, I guess the huge issue there is stimulus, right? Because that's going to direct a lot of the money. Investors who focus on this area are usually very long-term oriented, and they see coronavirus as kind of a blip in their 10-year plan, right? I mean, a very good blip, but a blip. And so they'll say, we still have to reach those climate goals. Like if coronavirus did this to our economy, just imagine what some of these climate catastrophes could do. So they're still going to push for a lot of these projects to happen. The issue is really whether there's going to be a fair playing field given the stimulus. And it's interesting, like there's countries like Canada and Germany that are going to require some green efficiency thinking to get stimulus. Well, it's not necessarily happening everywhere.
Well, it's interesting. I still think about, was it over the last week, that big story about, the largest solar installation in the U.S. history. Warren Buffett's behind it. Yeah. I mean, that won U.S. approval. So some major projects are still going ahead. So that will certainly help in that fight. All right. If you want to know more from Bloomberg Green, and you should, check it out. You can find it at Bloomberg.com/green. Emily Chasen, sustainability editor at Bloomberg News, on the phone from New York City. I always love just kind of browsing that part
some
of
great
our website.
And also some great infographics as well. Like you really can learn how the world is working, or maybe should work a little bit better. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. Stocks continue to slide after Fed Chair Jerome Powell warned that economic risks from the coronavirus remain significant. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 570, the S&P 500 down 63, the Nasdaq Composite down 192. Add Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont to the list of those predicting the end of the daily commute. He tells Bloomberg some CEOs have told him telecommuting could save money by cutting office space by as much as 30%. Airbus is preparing for permanent job cuts after it warned that collapsing demand would mean lower production. Sources say discussions are underway with unions in Germany, France, and Spain. No word on how many jobs may be cut. We'll be keeping an eye on GE. Barron's reports it's on track for its lowest close in decades. GE is down 27 cents at $5.72. It closed at $5.59 on December 20, 1991. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance are proud to present a Boston Pop salute to our heroes. This Independence Day, the orchestra's 4th of July tradition continues. The program will feature guest artists, highlights from past fireworks displays, new music paying tribute to the heroes of the current health crisis, and honoring the memories of those we have lost. Watch and listen Saturday, July 4th, starting at 8 Eastern, exclusively on Bloomberg Television and right here on Bloomberg Radio. In-depth analysis, concise report.
For more than 20 years, ASDA supported our communities. We've raised over £23 million for Fair Share and the Trussell Trust. And recently, we've donated supplies to frontline NHS workers and carers. We've always been proud to serve those around us. Visit asda.com/creating change for better. ASDA, we're all in this together.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip number 5, cooking something. We all get stuck in a culinary rut with our normal routine. Shake things up in the kitchen by trying an ambitious new recipe or an over-the-top dessert. If cooking really isn't your thing, you can always support your local restaurants by ordering out. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen from Home on TuneIn. It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1983, MLB right fielder Reggie Jackson is the first major leaguer to strike out 2,000 times.
Reggie Jackson is the batter. See right here. Strike one. Wow. Fouls it back. The fastball is 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. There they go. Struck him out. Ball game is over.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
This week on the New Yorker Radio Hour, Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. She's faced furious protests to Michigan's coronavirus restrictions.
I didn't ask to be thrown into the national spotlight. I'm just trying to do my job, and I'm never going to apologize for that because lives are at stake here.
Governor Whitmer talks with Susan Glasser on the New Yorker Radio Hour from WNYC Studios. Listen to this episode on TuneIn today.
Hit the court anytime with these great NBA podcasts on TuneIn. The Low Post.
So what struck you about this potential head-to-head matchup? What did we learn now that Zion is involved and LeBron and Zion go at each other for the first time?
You know, I still think both teams have to figure out kind of who are their guys when they get into a fourth quarter. I think you saw that with both of them. There were some kind of odd moments.
The Ringer NBA Show.
Who ended up winning the thing. But I did watch for a little bit when it was DeAndre Ayton and Zach LaVine playing against each other. And then as the days went on, Devin Booker was involved. Tell me you've seen the clip of Devin Booker when I can't remember who his opponent was.
Or the Haber Show.
At the end, it's because I worked in the NBA in the front office, and when I was 14 years old, my family moved back from Sudan to America. I went up high school here in New York
Find these and more NBA podcasts right here on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
All right, well, the big and the techier are getting bigger and techier, and that may not be such a good thing, so says Dave Wilson in his chart of the day.
I was going to say, sounds like you're teeing up the chart of the day, which you are.
I am.
All right, we're going to bring in Dave in just a moment. Let's get back, though, to the world of business. Top business stories, a look at the trading day. We've just got a little bit less than a half an hour to go here, Charlie.
Indeed, 28 minutes lows of the day right now. Stocks slumping to a 3-week low after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. You heard his remarks right here on Bloomberg Radio this morning. Also, tensions with China are flaring. Let's give you the numbers with the S&P down 70 now at 2,800 even, down 2.4%. The Dow is down 660 now. Lows of the day down 2.8%. NASDAQ is down 213, a drop there of 2.4%. 10-year up 9/30 seconds with a yield of 0.64%. Gold up 0.7%, 17.14 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude down 1.8% now, 25.31 a barrel. According to a report from New York University, the coronavirus test from Abbott Labs used at the White House to get rapid answers as to whether someone is infected may miss as many as half of positive cases. The analysis, which has yet to be confirmed, found that Abbott's ID Now missed at least 1/3 of positive cases detected with a rival test and as much as 48% when using the currently recommended dry nasal swabs. Abbott shares, they are lower now by 2.6%. The nation's top government scientists are warning about the risks of reopening the U.S. economy too quickly without adequate testing for the coronavirus. Dr. Andrew Pekosh is a professor of molecular microbiology and immunology at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And on Bloomberg Radio this morning, he talked about the importance of so-called contact tracing.
We have to turn our resources from just checking sick people right now to making sure that we have enough resources to find individuals and their contacts and really limit the infection before we can really safely start to significantly open up the economy again.
Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health is supported by Michael R. Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg LP and Bloomberg Philanthropies. The 10-year yield, 0.64%. Gold up 0.7, 17.15 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude oil down 1.6%, 25.36 a barrel. Among the closely watched technology companies reporting after the bell today will be Cisco Systems. Cisco shares down now by 3.8%. I'm Charlie Pellet. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week right here on Bloomberg Radio.
Yeah, totally 60s. It's very much like you can see like Playboy Mansion 60s.
Good Lord.
I don't know if the guy who was singing there would have ended up in the Playboy Mansion at that time. Because when that was recorded...
Is that a clue? Was that a clue?
He was 12 years old.
Was that Michael Jackson?
You're getting close.
No, Stevie Wonder?
Congratulations. That was his very first hit, Fingertips Part 2.
Right.
And Stevie Wonder, once billed as the 12-year-old genius, turned 70 today.
Wow.
Just listen to some of his music. I love, like, bringing his music to, like, my daughter. I don't know how you feel about that, Jason, too, like a younger generation. His stuff is just incredible. And right, Dave, such a range. If you think about his early stuff and how it evolved, it, certainly reflected kind of what was going on in his life, but just so cool.
Not only his life, but in our lives.
Totally.
Yeah, for sure.
70.
For sure.
That's young.
Cutting across so many. Well, I mean, you start when you're 12.
Yeah.
Are we going to get into this again?
I know.
Like a young man at the age of 87?
Hey, when you're 87, you're going to say, I'm a young man. You just watch it, buddy.
Yeah,
so, Dave Wilson, what do you got? Chart of the day.
All right. Let's talk about what I call the twin towers of technology in today's chart. Apple and Microsoft. I mean, really, ever since 2018, when S&P reconfigured its indexes and, took companies like Google, their parent Alphabet, and Facebook out of the technology category, threw them into what was redefined as communication services. I had a chart on this the other day. But really, since then, Apple and Microsoft have pretty much ruled the roost among S&P 500 tech stocks. That said, if you look at what's been going on lately, they have become increasingly dominant within that group. And it's something that got the attention of Mark Heffley. He's the Chief Investment Officer at UBS's Global Wealth Management Unit. And, he points out that this is a reason for concern. You have this kind of concentration in two stocks. And in essence, if you're going to invest in tech companies at this point, their performance will be driven more than before even by the way that they do. And to show that, I took a look at the weightings of those two stocks within the S&P 500 Information Technology Index. You go back to the first quarter of last year, they were a little more than 35% between them. And as of yesterday, that was up to 42.5%. So in other words, they are becoming increasingly dominant within the category. And you can see that in how important they are within the S&P 500 tech category. I mean, really, if that group's going to do well, these stocks have to do well. And if they don't, look out. And if you want to know more, folks, send me an email. I'll get you the chart. The explanation goes with it. And everything I do going forward, the email address is dwilson@bloomberg.net. That's dwilson@bloomberg.net.
I like that end note that Dave struck. If they don't look out. I mean, it is what we're worried about, right? I mean, given that so many hopes and more than hopes, so many profits in many ways in terms of how the NASDAQ has traded and the NASDAQ 100 have traded are really pinned to a very small number of names.
Like here we are again. Dave, how much does that worry you about how much of the market is consolidated in a handful of names? I feel like it's very representative of our economy, but it doesn't truly represent everything. Or does it?
No, it doesn't. I mean, it's certainly a relatively fast-growing area, and that's been the whole argument between growth and value stocks over the past decade or more.
Right.
So that's part of it. But I'll just give you a quick statistic that came out of Heffley's research, that if you looked at the S&P 500 Tech Index, it would have been down 3% this year through this past Friday, if not for Apple and Microsoft. With them, it was up about 3.5%.
Yeah, it skews it,
So that's
right?
the effect.
Well, and it's also those big index funds. Like, let's go back to the cover story of Business Week magazine, right? That the influence of those big index funds where they have to buy these names, certainly influences what we see in the trade.
It exacerbates
Of course, the more weight they carry, the more they have to buy.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
There you go. All right, Dave Wilson, we will catch up with you on the other side of the close with your stock of the day. Coming up, we're going to drive you to the close with our
Going to drive you crazy? Is that what you're saying?
Drive you crazy. Fun young cannibals. Very different very different era from Stevie Wonder. In any case, Bob Boone, World National Headlines. Hi.
Hi there. This is grim by the numbers. More than 33 million people have filed for unemployment assistance since the COVID-19 pandemic swept through the U.S., and the unemployment rate sits at nearly 15%. Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell says it is still worrisome. But in a speech today, he also said the federal government has the tools to put some emergency measures in place.
The result could be an extended period of low productivity growth and stagnant incomes. We ought to do what we can to avoid these outcomes, and that may require additional policy measures.
Powell did stress he wasn't interested in slashing interest rates into negative territory, something President Trump is in favor of doing. State by state, the country is reopening for business with varying adherence to recommendations from the scientists. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman reports from Washington.
The state of Connecticut will relax conditions next week, and Governor Ned Lamont said in a Bloomberg interview he's acting with appropriate caution.
All those curves are bending in the right direction. We have extra hospitalization capacity there, which was a key metric. We got track and trace and testing ready to go. And these are the key metrics we needed to give people confidence we could begin to reopen on May 20th.
Governor Lamont expects many of the residents who previously commuted to offices in New York City will telecommute at least part of the week permanently. In Washington, Irv Chapman, Bloomberg Radio.
News 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Bob Moon.
What's the true value of your custodial relationship? Ben Harrison of BNY Mellon's Pershing explains.
As sophisticated investors demand more from their advisors, advisory firms, in turn, need to rely on their custodian to help them grow their complex businesses. At BNY Mellon's Pershing, supporting the rapid growth of RIAs is our number one priority. We understand what it means to deliver true value to our clients who are looking for a custodian that is aligned with their best interest and delivers high-value solutions, all in an open architecture environment with flexibility, choice, and transparency. Learn why so many of the largest advisory firms turn to us for the financial strength, resiliency, and high-touch service that BNY Mellon Pershing provides. When you work with Pershing, we put your business first. Can your custodian say that?
Learn more at Pershing.com or call 800-445-4467. Pershing Advisor Solutions, LLC. Member FINRA SIPC.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then go to Babbel.com, download the app, and try it for free. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just go to Babbel.com and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or go to Babbel.com and try it for free. That's Babbel.com.
If knowledge is power, the Bloomberg...
Oh, just there, Dave. Smashing. Oh, great. Oh, really? Night, Steve. Yeah, see ya. Built to take the big knocks. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung Rugged range.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Get your MLB fix with these great podcasts on TuneIn. Fill your seventh inning stretch with the Ringer MLB Show.
I just can't get over it. It's like, oh, well, Jeter Downs didn't realize he was a top. Like, my dad is drinking the Kool-Aid on this. He's like, of course. Mookie was going to leave. I'm like, what do you mean? You don't know that.
Slide into second with the Starting Nine podcast.
Nolan Arenado slides right into the top spot for a favorite baseball player. Active in the league right now. It is a pleasure to be sitting next to you, sir.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is we've been waiting a long time for this. We actually, in terms of active
Round the Bases with the Statcast podcast.
Ways of going about it. I picked third, so in some ways it made it easier for me. Mike, just to go over the first couple of picks. Mike took Barry Bonds, who I think was kind of the obvious guy to take number one. Not only
catch these and more MLB podcasts right here on TuneIn.
Want to relive the glory of college football?
Balls over a man, into the end zone.
Come explore TuneIn's classic game replay collection to hear ESPN's complete coverage of the 2019 New Year's 6 bowl games. Don't miss your chance to re-experience the Rose Bowl, the 2020 National Championship, featuring Clemson and LSU.
There are going to be 2 champions on the field tomorrow night. There's going to be 1 team hold up the trophy.
Search Classic Game Replays to listen for free.
With the NHL season temporarily on ice, now is a good time to catch up on past games. With Game Replay on TuneIn, you can hear every matchup of the 2019-2020 season so far. And for a limited time, it's free for hockey fans everywhere. Search Classic Game Replays to start listening.
To help make the most of your time at home, TuneIn is sharing our top activities for social distancing. Tip number 5, cooking something. We all get stuck in a culinary rut with our normal routine. Shake things up in the kitchen by trying an ambitious new recipe or an over-the-top dessert. If cooking really isn't your thing, you can always support your local restaurants by ordering out. For more indoor inspiration, search Listen from Home on TuneIn.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
News 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellip. 13 minutes to go ahead of the closing bell. S&P 500 index slumping the most in about 2 weeks after Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant. Tensions with China are flaring. The S&P 500 index did fall below 2,800, a level that has provided support in the past month. Right now, though, the S&P 500 index is at 2809. It is down 60 points. That is a drop of 2.1%. The Dow down 590 points, down 2.5%, while NASDAQ is down 174, a drop now of 1.9%. 10-year up 8/32 with a yield of 0.64%. Gold up 0.8%, 17.16 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude down 1.4%, 25.40 a barrel. Volkswagen Chattanooga says it plans to resume production on May 17th. I'm Charlie Pellip. That is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
I'm driving in my car. I turn on the radio.
How about you let me drive?
Oh, no. Who's gonna drive you home? Honey, please, I'll do the driving. Drive on. Excuse me, I want to drive. Just drive, baby.
It's the question that drives us.
This is the drive to the close.
That funky music will drive us till the dawn.
On Bloomberg Radio.
It is time for the drive to the close. Back with us is Ryan Dietrich, senior market strategist at LPL Financial. $670 billion in assets under management. Ryan back with us on the phone from Charlotte, North Carolina. Ryan, how's it going in North Carolina?
Hey, Carol, first off, thanks for having me back. It's
sure.
Doing better. You know, I mean, it's slowly opening up. The weather's nice, which I guess is always a plus. But, you know, driving, I go to the office every couple of days, and there are more and more people on the road than there were, you know, a couple weeks ago. So I'm at home right now, but when I get to the office, there's definitely more people out there, and some restaurants are opening up. So maybe a little. And there's even talk that our spring sports, which were canceled, might start up in June down here. So it's very late for spring season, but maybe
really
coming here soon. That's the rumor. It's all to the governor, but we're getting emails already that spring sports could be crammed into 1 month. My sons play soccer and baseball, so we might have a lot of those in June, potentially. Well, a lot of potentialities, but we'll see.
How do you feel about that?
Mixed. My wife is much more cautious about it, and I guess I'm kind of like, it's soccer, you know, they're not really touching anybody, it's not a ball, let's let them go out and play. But I'm with you. It is, we weigh all of them. They interviewed like 900 people, and about 2/3 of them did say they supported the idea of, you know, moving forward with this. So we'll see. It's definitely mixed, I think, on the day, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's we're talking about it a lot up here as well, as you can imagine, especially as we get into, you know, I have a son who plays lacrosse during the summer and, you know, the summer tournament season, sort of similar to what you're talking about. I'm guessing you're involved with like travel soccer and travel baseball, you know, and you got a lot of different people coming together and people traveling, and there are just a lot of big questions around the sort of safety element.
Yeah, one thing they said is only one parent can even go to the games. That's one way to get less people there, right? Only one parent can go watch, but that's what you got to do. So
yeah. Interesting. So speaking of mixed and people not quite being able to make up their minds, it feels like the market over the last couple weeks has been a little tricky to predict. I mean, it feels like it's a fairly clear message this last couple days, and we started off the show talking about the Fauci-Powell 1-2 punch of kind of a reality check of where we are and where we go from here. How do you read it, especially from a technical perspective, Ryan?
Well, yeah, Jason, you're right. Let's not forget, Tepper came out and said it's the second most overvalued market he's seen since 99, and Druckenmiller said the risk-reward's one of the worst he's ever seen, and Buffett already said he doesn't see any good value. So you see some of the smartest investors ever, and now we've got potentially 2 days in a row of down 2% stocks for the first time since March 20th to March 23rd. We'll see where we close. But our take is this. I've come on with you guys for a while saying, last month and a half, saying stocks likely will go higher. The oversold bounce was likely, and sure enough, up 30%, that's the case. But just in the last week and a half or so, we've become much more cautious with some of the assets that we run for our clients. And, we look at things like you mentioned technicals, just simply market breadth. And to keep this very simple, S&P kept going up, but less and less stocks were participating in the rally. Some of the big bang stocks and large ones. That says, hey, something could crack here. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it was likely. And sure enough, boom, we've had some negative headlines, and all of a sudden we're looking at what could be, in our opinion, maybe as much as a 10% correction, which would get the S&P back to 2650. And last thing I'll say, when we looked at all the major bear markets going back in history, after that initial bounce, guys, the average correction was about 10%. So we think that makes sense. We're not in the camp of new lows, not in the camp we're going to retest March lows, but it could be time, and the calendar says it could be time for a little more correction here, and that's what we're seeing in the last 2 days.
Well, you hit it, Ryan. Time. I think that's the thing right now. We all expect the economy to get back to some sort of normal. The problem is how fast and how long. And we talked with our economics team saying it's going to be 3 years until we see the economic momentum that we had pre-virus. We see that kind of level again. And I think that's the thing. We all kind of need to be patient. You talked about, I think getting more cautious, you said, with some of your clients. What does that mean? Are you going straight to cash or cash-like investments, or what are you doing?
Yeah, great question there. So really the easiest way is we are removing a little bit of equity exposure, going to some bonds, some cash. Honestly, we've warmed to gold. We've liked gold for a while. We've added some gold in some of our portfolios, and also just a little more defensive, something like Staples, right? If you look at Staples, really solid eurnings. I mean, people are still buying them, good valuations, a good momentum. So those are some of the areas. But I want to be very clear here. This is more for a tactical and trade the next couple of months of a pullback. I mean, we still think when you see the fact that 24% of GDP, when you look at the combination of what the Fed is doing and what the fiscal policy is doing, that's a lot of backstop. That's a lot of momentum, again, that still says 6 months from now, a year from now, we do believe stocks will be up. And I mean, one other thing for you, so April was up 12%, right? S&P gained 12%, one of the best months ever. Yeah. When you take a look, 6 months after months gained 10%, some of the best months ever, S&P's higher 9 out of 11 times, up 11% on average. So we had a massive rally. It makes sense, though, to have some pullback the month or two after, and sure enough, we're seeing that. But it tends to resolve higher when we saw that blast of power in April. We're not going to ignore that. But tactically here, short term, we think a little maybe better pitch makes some stuff here.
So selling may go away. Is that one of the things that's been thrown out in this pandemic environment, Ryan?
Yeah, it's almost too simple and too easy to point out, but it's the truth. You think about last year? I mean, S&P gained 30% last year. When was the biggest correction we had all year? It was May and June. And I know it's a U.S.-China trade dispute, but for whatever reason, the summer months tend to be when we get some of these corrections, and it is what it is. The next 6 months are the worst on the calendar. And when you lay over the fact that we just had the best 6 months, right? And those were down. So the best 6 months weren't even higher. So your sell may go away period actually gets worse. When stocks are down for the year heading into the worst 6 months, the returns get worse those next 6 months. So the calendar is really doing people no favor, and I get it. The headlines are what matter. If we get some vaccine, let's pray we do. We get a vaccine sooner than expected or some breakthrough in drugs, you can throw that out the window. But the reality of the fact is still very, up 31%, and there's some technical levels without participation. With the calendar, it all makes sense to us, some type of downside risk. It is more than likely.
Well, and the problem is we keep talking about reality checks and also just how everything that our expectations have been turned upside down, and we really don't know. We don't know the playbook on this. We know other crises, but we just don't exactly know how it all comes together on the other side. Ryan Dietrich, good to hear that you're safe. Nice to check in with you once again. Senior market strategist at LPL Financial, $670 billion in assets under management. Jason, on the phone from Charlotte, North Carolina. I love hearing kind of what the reality is in different cities and different states. Kind of helps tell the picture.
I hope the kids are out playing soccer and baseball this summer. I mean, seriously, that will be a good sign. And I do think that those are the sorts of things, and obviously it's going to be a little bit different, as he said, one parent on the sidelines, and we'll see how this plays out. But those are the sorts of things that as they come into reality that are going to make people feel a lot better. All right, coming up, we're going to get you to the actual close, some movers and shakers, Dave Stock, and much more ahead, including Jeff Crandall. This is Bloomberg.
Leaders are born.
What does it take to get the market?
Where will 2020 take you? Somewhere where people care about each other, about our planet, about creating a better world for everyone, and becoming the best versions of yourselves. Join a community of like-minded individuals at the University of Winchester. Make sure to accept your offer by the UCAS deadline and visit our website to find out more. See the bigger picture. Be the difference. Go to winchester.ac.uk.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Helen is dreaming of fighting a flock of 40-foot flamingos. But in reality, she's helping fight COVID-19 in her sleep. Like thousands of others, she's joined the Dream Team. By using the Dream Lab app, they're helping scientists speed up the search for potential treatments. I'll fight you. Keep fighting, Helen. Search Vodafone Dream Lab and join the Dream Team tonight.
Dream Lab app is owned by Vodafone Foundation, an independent charity. Registration number 1089625. Full terms at vodafone.co.uk/dreamlab.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. There you have it, sound of the closing bell at the New York Stock Exchange. Stocks finish off their session lows. It is a down Wednesday nonetheless, with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining. S&P 500 index at the bell down 50, closing at 2820, 2800, even a critical support level. So the S&P down today by 1.8%. The Dow down 517 points, a drop there of 2.2%, and NASDAQ down 100 39 points, a drop there of 1.5%. 10-year up 9.30 seconds, the yield on the 10-year 0.64%. Stocks slumped the most in 2 weeks after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant and tensions with China flared. Ryan Dietrich is senior market strategist at LPL Financial, and moments ago, right here on Bloomberg Business Week, he told us he is getting more cautious.
S&P kept going up, but less and less stocks were participating in the rally. Some of the big bang stocks and large ones. That says, hey, something could crack here. You don't know when it's going to happen, but it was likely. And sure enough, boom, we've had some negative headlines, and all of a sudden we're looking at what could be, in our opinion, maybe as much as a 10% correction, which would get the S&P back to 2650.
And today, the S&P again, 28.20. Gold up 0.9%, 17.17 the ounce. And West Texas Intermediate crude lower today by 1% at $25.51 a barrel. And again, recapping on the markets, S&P 500 index did fall today, down 1.8%. Twitter is allowing employees to work from home forever. Twitter announcing in a blog post that employees can work from home as long as they want, even after the coronavirus pandemic ends. Twitter shares lower today by 3.5%. And California's Alameda County says Tesla can reopen its lone U.S. plant next week without acknowledging that it's already been operating there for days. Tesla shares down 2.3%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Wild thing, think you move me.
I got a few moves I know you'll like.
Shake 'em, not stir.
Just move on toward your destination.
I can make things move without touching them.
Shaking all over.
Bloomberg Business Week, Movers and Shakers, with Carol Masser and Jason Kelly on Bloomberg Radio.
It is time to take a look at some of the movers and shakers. We do this as we constantly keep at least one eye on what's going on with the virus. And a headline crossing the Bloomberg: U.S. virus cases rise 1.6%. That is less than the past week average of 1.9%. And we have to do this, Jason, because it's important, right, to understand, are we plateauing? Because we really need, I think it's 14 days, right, of numbers decreasing to feel more conviction about how we start to reopen the economy. It's also a sign that, okay, we're getting this increasingly under control. You want less new cases. You want less hospitalizations. You obviously want less people dying from the virus. So very, very important for us to watch.
Right, and those trend lines are important in part because they do speak to the national ability as well as the regional ability to cope with this outbreak going forward. It's about not overwhelming the health system, and it was interesting to see, I've been reading sort of in between segments, what Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York, said about reopening different parts of the state. You know, so he's going sort of region by region, and there is a 7-point checklist that a region needs to meet in order to reopen, and you've got 4 regions, I believe, here in New York and different parts of the state that are going to reopen on Friday. And that's a big step forward, especially for this state. Man, really hit hard.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about the market internals today. We do have Cisco coming out after the closing bell, so we'll bring you those numbers as soon as they cross. In the meantime, big picture, Charlie giving you those closing numbers, and we did finish just off our lows, but we did see a bunch of selling. S&P 500 predominantly down for the day. 451 names. 53 showing some gains, 1 unchanged, Jason. So as I said earlier, if I look at those major industry groups in the S&P 500, there are 11 of them. All of them are down on the day. So broad-based selling.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's take a look, if we can, at some of the biggest movers. BlackRock, interesting, was your biggest gainer after being punished pretty dramatically yesterday after PNC Bank saying it was going to sell its massive share. And BlackRock may be bouncing back because people saying, oh, right, this is actually a really big, important company, and it is the world's largest asset manager. So maybe we shouldn't, sort of throw everything out right now because one of their biggest holders is selling, and probably selling for reasons that have more to do with PNC and less to do with BlackRock, and maybe more investors convinced of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another name that you're keeping an eye on, and I know you brought out, was Cody. And I feel like that, too, has been in the news a lot this week. And as we know, this is one of your laggards, your biggest decliners in the S&P 500. Ouch, down about 15-16%. And, of course, we know they did get a big investment this week, but it's complicated. And even so, they got a lifeline. There's some concerns, I think, about what this company is going forward.
All right, let's hit the headlines from Cisco. The redhead, the one everybody's looking at, is the forecast, seeing a fourth quarter revenue down 8.5% to 11.5%. The estimate was actually for down 11.9%. So let's see how the stock is reacting to that. It is up, not surprisingly. So basically that revenue, and this is the world we're living in, that revenue forecast, not as bad as people thought it might be. I think in a normal time, if they said revenue was going to be down as much as 11%, people would say, ugh, but the estimate was for much worse. So the stock up about 3.5%, a little more.
Yeah, we'll see if it holds on to it, right? They do say 95% of their global workforce are working from home, and they say fourth quarter adjusted EPS 72 to 74 cents. That's above the estimate of 69 cents a share. So we'll see. The conference call will be key in terms of what the company has to say. But as you said, right now, stock bouncing around, but still up about 2.5% here in the after hours.
All right, let's take a quick look at volatility. The VIX up again today, although not up like it was yesterday. Up yesterday, almost 20% today. Up about 5%, closing at 34.77. This is Bloomberg.
All right, Dave, you're up.
Hi, my name is Dave.
Wilson, where are you? Wilson!
Just what do you think you're doing, Dave?
We're going for a price on Wilson. Open up the door, it's Dave. Who? Dave.
Hey, Mr. Wilson. Jinx.
When you put your hand out like that, I don't know whether you're pointing at me or you're doing like a Shazam move. I don't know what's going on.
Shazam.
All right.
Dave.
Shazam, Dave. What's your stock?
My stock is a company called PGT Innovations. It's a maker of windows and doors. The company specializes in impact-resistant products designed to protect homes from hurricanes and other storms. As you may expect, PGT Innovations is based in Florida and does much of its business there. The company also operates elsewhere in North America and in the Caribbean. PGT Innovation was founded in 1980 and went public in 2006. The ticker is PGTI. Now, the company shares peaked in September 2018 and have fallen as much as 74% since then. Earnings disappointments have fueled the retreat. And PGT Innovations released first quarter results today, and they went over better. Earnings were more than twice the average analyst estimate in the Bloomberg survey. Sales also were far above projections. Now, PGT Innovations did say sales suffered in April because of building restrictions tied to the coronavirus. Yet the company also said orders are starting to rebound this month, especially in Florida. All this led shares of PGT Innovations to their biggest gain since July 2014. They climbed almost 26.5%.
Wow. Big jump.
Indeed it is.
For sure. All right, Dave
And
Wilson.
that's why it's my stock of the day.
It's funny how that happens. Some stock moves dramatically one way or the other, and it ends up as the stock of the day. It's almost like that's what you're looking for.
It's
that and a bigger story, because you get a bunch of bad earnings, and then you get good earnings, and you see the turnaround.
Well, you find these small cap names that we don't talk about, but it's really a fascinating market. Stock's still down about 17% this year, though, Dave.
That's true. I mean, it certainly took a hit in March and April, as another number of other stocks did, and a bit of a comeback today.
There you go. All right, Dave Wilson, we will catch up with you tomorrow. Have a great evening. And we always turn to you for insights, charts, and stocks. Coming up, another guy we turn to, Kevin Cirilli. He's going to join us from Washington to help us understand some of the drama going on Capitol Hill and the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue.
All right, and let's not forget, we got an election going on this year. All right, let's get back to world and national news headlines. Covering it all for us is Ed Baxter out there in San Francisco. Hey, Ed.
Hey, Carol. Hey, Jason. U.S. CD19 cases
rose 1.6% of the past week, less than the past week average. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer's resolution to have the CDC guidance report on safely reopening has been blocked by Republican Senator Mike Braun. The same report had already been shelved by the Trump administration. Schumer says he trusts the CDC guidelines and what the president, more than what the president is saying. Republicans say the CDC guidelines are overly prescriptive. New York City has taken its first tentative step toward opening schools in September, starting with pre-kindergarten offers. Meanwhile, Governor Andrew Cuomo says he still has concerns about the Kawasaki-type syndrome affecting children in the state.
14 other states are now investigating cases in their state for possible inflammatory disease for children related to COVID. 5 European countries are now looking at this.
In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy.
Data determines dates, and the data we are seeing gives us confidence that we can begin the careful and responsible restart of our economy to get people back to work and to begin to set the stage for the steps to come.
Now in California, Governor Gavin Newsom says the state has to turn part of its attention to the projected large wildfire fighting season and power companies to run preventative power shutdowns.
We are taking these efforts very, very seriously and holding this company to account in ways they haven't been in the past.
Talking specifically about PG&E. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg Radio.
Why can't you just go to some remote island and wait till all this is over?
The range of outcomes is so wide.
Because it's your job.
What do you think some of the structural changes might result?
Fortunately, it's our job too.
How's value done in this market?
Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
It's very hard to make a forecast.
Bloomberg Markets.
This could be a lower for longer type of hit.
Weekday mornings at 10 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
You know your body, and you know when something's off, when something doesn't feel quite right. Don't ignore symptoms like fatigue, joint pain, rashes, and fever. They could be signs of lupus. Listen to your body. Take care of yourself. We're here to help you take control of your health. Learn how at BeFierceTakeControl.org. Brought to you by the Lupus Foundation of America and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Are you interested in a challenging and exciting career? One where you can be part of solving complex challenges across industries and geographies. Bloomberg's ever-expanding technology, data, news, and media services foster innovation, empower clients, and offer nearly limitless opportunities for career growth. Visit Bloomberg.com/careers today to view our current job opportunities. Bloomberg LP is an equal opportunity employer. The address once again is Bloomberg.com/careers.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
Just this wall and that one to do, Dave, and then we're done. Whoop! Oh, no!
Hello, Steve Sparky.
Pass us that roof tile, Chris.
Yep, sure. I'll be fun. Oh, no.
Saved by the gutter! Built to rough it with contractors. Samsung rugged devices. Easy to use, hard to break. Explore the Samsung Rugged range.
Picture in your mind a stylish Audi with striking LED headlights, sporty alloy wheels, and some of our most advanced features, including a 10-inch digital cockpit and smart assistant systems like lane departure warning. Picture what that Audi looks like. Now think smaller. The Audi A1. It's not a small car, it's a small Audi. Visit audi.co.uk. Audi. Vorsprung durch Technik.
Get your cook on with Asda. With Butcher Selection quarter-pounder beef burgers, get a 4-pack for just £2.28. And salmon fillets, get a 2-pack for only £2.97. So dinner's always a winner. At Asda, we're committed to low prices every day on the quality products you need. Asda. Selected stores and lines subject to availability.
TSB believe in people helping people. That's why they've created TSB Smart Agent, a new secure way for TSB to answer your personal and business banking questions online. Find out more at tsb.co.uk. Automated service available 24/7. TSB partners available 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday to Friday.
Typical Danny. Last night I was chilling with my girls, but ended up spilling my Chardonnay all over my fave lilac nightie when I saw the photo I was tagged in. State of my fake tan. But no worries, just one wash and my clothes will smell perf with Surf. Surf gives you long-lasting fragrance with natural essential oils. Find your fragrance in Surf's laundry range.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Tonight, it's a Lotto triple rollover. Don't miss out. Play your numbers online or on the app today. Lotto from the National Lottery. Your numbers make amazing happen. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
Want Apple's latest Mac?
From just £34 a month.
With no deposit.
Buy online now from krcs.co.uk. Your local Apple experts. And get your Mac with all this, plus 2 years warranty.
And free next day delivery.
See our full Apple range now at krcs.co.uk. Representative example, cash price 103306. 36 months at 33.97. Total payable 1222.92. Representative 11.9% APR.
Sports and festivals on hold. Weddings and christenings on hold. Marathons on hold. But not everything is on hold.
My name's Lynn, and I have terminal cancer. I don't know how many weeks I have left.
In this time of national emergency, Marie Curie nurses and hospices are needed more than ever. We can only care for dying people like Lynn if you donate. Visit mariecurie.org.uk to donate to our emergency appeal.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. We're keeping an eye on Cisco shares up by 2.1%. It delivered a sales forecast that beat Wall Street expectations. Shares of the networking equipment maker higher in extended trading again. Cisco Systems up by 2.1%. It was a down Wednesday here with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining. S&P holding above 2800, 2820 on the S&P, down 50 today, a drop of 1.75%. The Dow down 516 points, lower by 2.2%. NASDAQ down 139, a drop of 1.5%. 10-year up 9/32, yield 0.64%. Gold, spot gold up 0.8%, 17.15 the ounce. West Texas Intermediate crude dropped 1%, 25.53 a barrel. Again, after earnings, Cisco Systems shares up 2.1%. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. You are listening to Bloomberg Business Week. I was just imploring everyone, the few people that follow me on Twitter, I don't have a Massarian following, to get smarter about politics and policy right now, because we're talking to Kevin Cirilli. He knows it all. He joins us from Washington. He's the host also of Sound On, coming up in Washington, and of course our chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg Radio and Television. So I feel like all eyes have been down your way, Kev, over the past couple of days. First Fauci, today Powell, and now it feels like the gaze turns to some extent to Capitol Hill, because even Chair Powell said, all right, it's up to lawmakers.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear Chairman Powell really once again point to Congress and kind of separate himself from the storm that, well, he can't really unseparate himself from when the president is urging for there to be negative rates. But I think there are two things kind of in the next week or so that will come out of Washington that I think our audience will care about. The first, of course, is whether or not any Republicans are going to get on board with Speaker Pelosi. I don't see that happening, but she wants to pass that next round of economic stimulus out of the House by the end of the week. It's dead on arrival, quite frankly, in the Senate. And then next week, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin will testify virtually before the Senate Banking Committee. So that's some other developments here. He's been increasingly increasing his rhetoric about reopening the economy. So
Kevin Cirilli, are you doing a marathon? What's going on with you? We can hear it.
I'm trying. I apologize, you guys. I'm using Lucy. I am outside, but can you hear me now?
No.
We can hear you fine. We're just Carol's teasing you.
We're teasing with you, but I'm like, man, is he doing a marathon? Is he doing like a couple laps or something?
He's a great runner. He's a very serious runner.
I know, and I know, like, you're busy.
I'm going to get in trouble for this. I can feel it now.
No, you're not. No, you're not. You're not at all. Incredible.
So meanwhile, Kev, we got a couple guys running for president, including a Democrat who obviously hasn't been able to get out and do his thing and do events, unlike the president who, who obviously isn't doing big rallies, but is much more public. And it feels like we're starting to think more and more, because time is a-ticking, about the Veep stakes. Tell us the latest there for Vice President Biden.
So former Vice President Biden has said that he's picking a female for his vice president, and it looks like the short list is Senator Amy Klobuchar, Kamala Harris, and I guess Stacey Abrams, who has been really out there circulating her own name. So it will be interesting to see who he decides to go with. But Kamala Harris, obviously, back when there were debates, had that explosive moment during the first debate where she really went after him. But Senator Klobuchar represents more of a centrist pick that would allow him to campaign in the heartland, as that's the state that she comes from. So, a very diverse field that he's looking at.
So, Kev, what does Biden need? Does he need to think politically about what states, a running mate will bring in? Does he need to think about the women, the vote? Does he need to think about a younger vote? Like, what needs to be, a minority vote? What needs to be front and center for him?
It's always interesting when we cover the vice presidential pick. First and foremost, they have to be able to step in to be president in the case of an emergency. They're a heartbeat away from...
Which feels even more important right now. Let's just be honest.
Jason and I have talked about this, kind of offline.
Exactly. So they're literally a heartbeat away from being commander-in-chief, so that's incredibly important. And then beyond that, yes, there are the political considerations. Kamala Harris represents a more diverse pick. Klobuchar represents a more heartland pick. But even just to look at this, I was speaking with a senior Republican strategist yesterday who said it's without question that the Democrats are trying to just continuing to make this a referendum on President Trump. And that was the case before COVID-19 and even now. Biden has not really been aggressively campaigning. He's been doing a lot of local media, television spots, as well as, hosting virtual events. But President Trump has been in Arizona. He could go to Pennsylvania. And so that's a really different contrast that you're seeing from the campaign strategies. But from Biden's perspective, if you look at the polls in Michigan and Wisconsin, Arizona, Pennsylvania, he's up by averaging about 3 percentage points in those swing states.
Interesting. What's the next big moment in this campaign, you think, Kevin? Is it the pick?
I think actually it will be if the president decides to hold a rally.
Yeah.
I think that will be a major moment in the sense that it would really, be a contrast in where Republicans are and where Democrats are in terms of reopening the country. I think that, that could actually come before the vice presidential pick. I mean, you have to remember, there's no playbook right now. This is the first time that there's been a virtual campaign. Last cycle we had a viral campaign. This is a virtual one. And really, to be candid, neither side knows what they're doing.
Are we going to end up with everybody voting by mail?
We were talking about that. Listen, if that's the case, the most important political figure right now is the new U.S. Postmaster General, because can the U.S. Postal Service handle that?
Yeah.
And can Americans understand? Can Americans be educated enough to understand that procedure? Then you look at it from a national security perspective,
right?
And there's just we could do a whole 2 shows on that.
Yeah,
maybe we
absolutely.
Will. Well, I don't know.
You go finish those laps, okay, and make sure you have lots of water afterwards.
Because you got a show coming up.
That's right.
Sound on. For those of you listening on 99.1 in D.C., that is Kevin Cirilli's show coming up. Kevin Cirilli, our chief Washington correspondent for Bloomberg Radio and TV. We love catching up with him.
The emails that I got about how Kevin sounded, I'm just going to say.
Boy.
He's always great.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. A warning of broad danger to the economy from the coronavirus outbreak sent stocks sharply lower. Fed Chair Jerome Powell said it may take time for a recovery to gain momentum, and additional government support would be costly but worth it. Powell's grim outlook weighed heavily on Wall Street, turning stocks sharply lower. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 517, the S&P 500 dropped 50, the Nasdaq Composite tumbled 139. Amazon.com is eliminating temporary pay raises given to warehouse workers at the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. The $2 an hour increases have been extended twice, but Amazon expects to return workers to their prior wages in June. Uber may be hungry for an acquisition, but it'll need a big appetite to buy Grubhub. Dow Jones reports the companies are discussing a merger that would value Grubhub at about $6 billion. Cost savings would help pay for the deal. Larry Kofsky, Bloomberg Radio.
Tom has been a teacher for over 40 years. One day, I think one of the students had asked the question and he didn't remember the answer. And I also noticed that he was letting his class out earlier than they were supposed to let out. I was really starting to worry.
Levi and I talked about how it would change our lives, but he was there beside me.
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more. A message from the Alzheimer's Association and the Ad Council.
The world's financial decision makers connect on the Bloomberg Terminal. The buy side and the sell side together, collaborating across markets and countries in real time, sharing ideas, negotiating trades, and forming an influential network of over 325,000 financial professionals that helps power global markets. Isn't it time you join them? Request a demo at bloomberg.com/professional.
Are you interested in...
While most of us are looking out for each other at this time, sadly, fraudsters are trying to take advantage of the situation. Here's Chris Ainsley from Santander with advice for keeping your money safe.
Please be wary of people you've met online who claim to be stranded abroad and urgently need money. Always take time to think before you act, and if you think you're the victim of fraud, then let your bank know right away.
For more advice on keeping your money safe, visit santander.co.uk.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Sports and festivals on hold. Weddings and christenings on hold. Marathons on hold. But not everything is on hold.
My name's Lynn, and I have terminal cancer. I don't know how many weeks I have left.
In this time of national emergency, Marie Curie nurses and hospices are needed more than ever. We can only care for dying people like Lynn if you donate. Visit mariecurie.org.uk to donate to our emergency appeal.
Let's tune in sports on this day. On this day in 1983, MLB right fielder Reggie Jackson is the first major leaguer to strike out 2,000 times.
Reggie Jackson is the batter. See right here. Right one. Wow. Fouls it back.
us in the conversations breaking down the moments just like this? Search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
The NHL is always on the ice with these awesome hockey podcasts on TuneIn. Get your goal with the Spittin' Chicklets podcast.
Brian Yandel, Keith Yandel, thanks for coming on. What's going on?
Nothing much. Glad to be here. You guys got some nice digs here.
We heard you took Southwest 2-stop flight to get out here.
Yeah, well, just...
Carve up the ice with NHL at the rink.
The other day I wrote a story. Artemi Panarin, Semyon Varlamov, Sergei Bobrovsky, they all helped arrange for the purchase of N95 masks to benefit hospitals in their respective markets. This is another one of those positive stories you're seeing.
Or create your own power play with Locked On NHL.
All these teams invested future assets to take a run at the Stanley Cup right now. Like, all of those teams would have a real serious gripe, like trading these multiple first-round picks to make a run at a cup. You're right.
Discover these and more NHL podcasts right here on TuneIn.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Live to New York, Bloomberg 1130. To Washington, D.C., Bloomberg 99.1. To Boston, Bloomberg 106.1. To San Francisco, Bloomberg 960. To the country, Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Business Week.
Yes, indeed. This is Bloomberg Business Week. Carol Master along with Jason Kelly. Man, if you just type on the Bloomberg top airline stories, man, there's just a slew that come up because we know that the airline industry has been hurt so severely as a result of the pandemic, including a story about American Air debt flashing warning amid worsening travel collapse. So that's just one story among many, Jason, that we've been talking about.
That's exactly right. And we're going to catch up with former American Airlines Chairman and CEO Bob Crandall coming up in just a few minutes. First, let's get to Charlie Pellet. Hey, Charlie.
Well, hello there, Jason Kelly. Let's begin with some of those airline stocks. It was a tough Wednesday here. UAL, for example, down 9%. American down 5.6%. Delta slumped 7.7%. Southwest lower today by 4.9%. The number of Texas COVID-19 cases has risen 3.3% above 3%, which has been the 7-day average. That headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service. Moments ago, we heard from Cisco Systems. It delivered a sales forecast that beat Wall Street expectations, sending shares of the networking equipment maker higher in extended trading. It said revenue in the fourth quarter, which ends in July, will fall 8.5% to 11.5% from a year earlier. At the midpoint, that indicates revenue of about $12 billion. Analysts on average had expected revenue of $11.8 billion. Shares of Cisco, they are up now by 2.8%. 3-week low for U.S. stocks after Fed Chair Jay Powell warned economic risks from the virus are significant and tensions with China flared. Powell says the U.S. economy faces unprecedented downside risks. His remarks came at a virtual event hosted by the Peterson Institute for International Economics in Washington. It was carried live here on Bloomberg Radio, where he also pushed back against the prospect that the central bank would deploy negative interest rates.
Also, the evidence on the effectiveness of negative rates is very mixed. It's very mixed. There's no, there are research that says that they've been effective. There are plenty of doubters. And the issue really is the concern over interrupting the intermediation process and, reducing bank profitability, thereby reducing the availability of credit in the economy.
And this headline from the Bloomberg Professional Service, Fiat Chrysler will not be distributing its ordinary dividend in 2020. Again, recapping, the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declined today, with the S&P down 50, a drop of 1.7%. The Dow down 516, down 2.7%. NASDAQ down 139, down 1.6%. One more note, Amazon says it will end warehouse worker pay raises in June after spending almost $800 million in extra incentives to keep employees picking, packing, and shipping through the COVID-19 pandemic. Amazon shares up today by 0.5%. Gold up 0.8%. West Texas Intermediate crude down 0.4%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, appreciate that update. So if you want to know really about the history of and the underpinnings of the global airline industry, then you go to Bob Crandall. He's former president, CEO, and chairman of American Airlines. He was at American running the airline from 1985 to 1998. He joins us on this Wednesday from Palm City, Florida. Bob, Jason and I have been looking forward to checking in with you. First of all, I hope you're doing okay. Your family's doing okay?
Everybody's in good shape, Carol. Jan and I are here in Palm City, and a bunch of the kids and grandkids are hanging out in Gloucester, Massachusetts at some property we have up there. So everybody's hale and hearty.
All right. Well, glad to hear that. Not hale and hearty is certainly the airlines industry. I'm just curious, as you look at it, you've seen a lot of cycles, up, down cycles, cycles of consolidation. How do you see it right now, and what does the industry look like post-pandemic?
Well, I think it looks very different and very substantially smaller for a long time to come. I think you got to recognize, Carol, and I'm sure you do, and I'm sure most people do, this isn't the usual kind of up and down cycle in the airline business. This is a matter of the general public feeling unsafe in closely packed or closely spaced public spaces. So you've seen restaurants take a tremendous hit. You've seen cruise ships take a tremendous hit. And airlines, of course, are sort of the penultimate example of packing people together to get from point A to point B for as little money as possible. And nonetheless, in a reasonably convenient way as compared to covered wagons, for example. So what you've got now is you have to ask yourself, how long will it be before people feel truly safe? And I think the answer is that they're not going to feel truly safe. Most people aren't going to feel truly safe until A, we have a vaccine, B, we have a cure, and C, we have much, much, much more systematic testing and tracking than we have today. We're amateurs in terms of testing and tracking. It just hasn't been set up. There is no plan. It isn't happening. So until we can solve those three problems and thereby alleviate the public's concern, I think most people are going to stay home. And of course, that's very bad for the airline business.
And so, if you were running an airline right now, what do you do?
Well, I think I would be doing. I think the people that are running airlines these days are doing pretty much all they can. In the first instance, they are in collaboration with the programs that have been passed by the Congress. They're keeping their people paid. Mm-hmm. They are doing all that they can to minimize their expenses. They are parking airplanes. They are retiring some of the older airplanes. They're stopping some of the flights in some careful way so that they meet the terms of the legislation, and they provide at least minimum service. But the fact is, they're flying as little as they possibly can. They are doing what they can to clean the airline terminals. They are doing what they can to clean the airplanes. They are teaching their employees how to deal with masks and in some cases temperature testing. So I think they've had quite a generous or creative set of things to do. All of them addressing two issues. One, how do we make the public feel safe? And second, how do we minimize our costs so as to preserve our ability to return to active flying once it's possible to do so?
Well, and meantime, the stress just continues, and we don't have a heck of a lot of visibility about when things start to get more normal. We're going to continue. Bob, hang on for a second. We're going to come back and continue our conversation with Bob Crandall, former president, CEO, and chairman of American Airlines, joining us from Florida. And as I said earlier, Jason, a story on the terminal about American Airlines, specifically their debt. We've been watching the debt very closely, the credit market, especially for some of these strained industries, and their debt falling further into distressed territory. And so there's a lot of warnings about what global traffic looks like. There's, it's going to be a very different environment. Right. I feel like he's really been setting the stage for us about, what's going on and what's to come.
And Dave Calhoun over at Boeing making some comments that I want to run by Bob Crandall as well about what happens in the short term and whether somebody goes out of business amid this dramatically, as you said, reduced capacity. So more ahead with Bob Crandall. Stick with us. In the meantime, let's get out to San Francisco. Ed Baxter is there. He's got some world national headlines. Hey there, Ed.
All right, Jason. Hey there. New York City has decided to take the first pre-kindergarten step, if you will, baby steps, toward reopening, saying it will send out invitations for pre-kindergarten students. Meanwhile, statewide, Governor Andrew Cuomo.
When you look at where we are today, we're just about where we were when we started this terrible situation. So we have hopefully come through the worst.
But now he says some good news through in that front. Line workers are now testing at a lower rate than the rest of the community. And Connecticut Governor Ned Lamont is also looking at some school openings.
You know, sometime in July we'll have outdoor camps. They're outdoors, smaller groups. Maybe summer school as the summer goes on, so we can slowly get our kids back up to speed.
He also says companies are now telling him that the usual Monday through Friday commute from the state to Wall Street may be over. More working at home. In California, Governor Gavin Newsom is looking at potentially disastrous wildfire season and the potential of those disruptive preventative power shutdowns. He says there's more oversight for sure than last year.
We are in a place we've never been in the past in terms of oversight and accountability and transparency with our investor-owned utilities to help support these wildfire mitigation efforts. I am not naive that these utilities are where they need to be.
Meanwhile, the numbers of human damage from the virus remain stable in the state, he says. Republicans blocking the public release of the CDC guidelines for reopening. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer had wanted a resolution of release since it's been shelved by the Trump administration. In San Francisco, with news 24 hours a day, I'm Ed Baxter. This is Bloomberg.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, makes innovation happen. The university helped biomedical engineering professor Tara Alvarez launch a startup that may revolutionize vision therapy.
Our startup through NJIT is called Ocular Motor Technology. We create virtual reality vision therapy in a head-mounted display. So it's gaming, and basically we're sugarcoating the therapy so that children and young adolescents don't even realize they're doing therapy. To accomplish this, we need biomedical engineers, which are here on NJIT campus, computer scientists, artists, people that are into story development, and then we're collaborating with a lot of the large pediatric medical centers. This idea of a startup culture is extremely important to not just NJIT and the National Science Foundation, but also to the U.S. as a societal whole.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. The hard part was determining that I was going to do it, but I definitely didn't do it alone.
At age 30, with the help of her mentor, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
I have a mentor, Maria. She convinced me to continue my education and to finish what I started to get my diploma. Just never judges. She's a true role model. If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
Bloomberg and Eaton Vance.
This is an important update from the government about coronavirus. We all need to stay alert so we can control the virus and reduce the risk of infection. To stay alert, you must remain at home as much as possible. Work from home if you can. Limit your contact with other people. If you have to go out, keep your distance from others, 2 meters apart where possible. Continue to wash your hands regularly. Do not leave home if you or anyone in your household has symptoms. Stay alert. Control the virus. Save lives.
Coronavirus is a global pandemic and a local story, but vast swaths of this country have no local news to speak of. It's the business model, stupid.
If a Starbucks had given away coffees for free and then started wanting to charge $5, people would have gone nuts.
The death and perhaps new life of local news on this week's On the Media from WNYC. Listen to the On the Media podcast on TuneIn today.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
You love TuneIn for live breaking news from CNN, MSNBC, Fox, CNBC, and more. But when you can't catch your favorite show as it airs, it might just be a click away as a podcast. Search your favorite news station to explore all the on-demand news shows on TuneIn.
Not all heroes wear capes, but most wear tights. Keep up with everything happening in the wild world of pro wrestling with a podcast on TuneIn. For expert analysis of the latest wrestling storylines, turn on the WWE podcast.
Big Steve-O edition.
Or listen to the Steve Austin Show for no-holds-barred conversations with wrestling's biggest personalities.
Because now on the show, everybody's kind of the same size, but as soon as I saw you, it's been...
For these and more, search sports and scroll down to the world of wrestling.
Okay, here we go.
With the NFL draft in the books and the schedule set, check out a TuneIn podcast for daily updates on the lead up to the 2020 season. Like the Ringer NFL show, where a rotating cast of Ringer experts talk with players, coaches, and special guests about the NFL landscape.
A lot of the other teams that we consider...
Or ESPN's NFL Live.
If there are some delays because of the COVID-19...
Search sports on TuneIn to explore these pods and much more.
With millions of podcasts dropping new episodes all the time, how do you keep up with all your favorites? TuneIn makes it easy. Simply head to the home screen and find your new episode section to see the latest additions.
Sports fans, this is David Jacoby telling you to check out the Chicago Bulls documentary, The Last Dance, as it continues this Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern on ESPN.
Our biggest challenge is us. I am cursing this mentality of competitiveness.
Competition is an addiction.
Every game is a battle.
Dennis, get up here. And then, immediately after the show, listen to Jalen Jacoby's After Show podcast featuring The Last Dance director, Jason Ayer. Search Jalen and Jacoby to start listening today.
It's TuneIn Sports on this day. On this day in 1983, MLB right fielder Reggie Jackson is the first major leaguer to strike out 2,000 times.
Reggie Jackson is the batter. See right here. Strike one. Wow. Fouls it back. The fastball is 1 ball, 2 strikes, 2 outs. There they go. Struck him out. Ball game is over.
To listen to conversations breaking down the moments just like this, search sports to be part of the discussion on TuneIn.
Hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From Bloomberg World Headquarters, I'm Charlie Pellet. After the bell, we heard from Cisco Systems. Shares up now by 1.5%. It delivered a sales forecast that beat street expectations, sending shares of the networking equipment maker higher. Cisco, by the way, also says 95% of its global workforce is working from home. It was a down Wednesday with the Dow, the S&P, and NASDAQ all declining after comments from Fed Chair Jay Powell. The S&P down 1